Hello and welcome to Crucible of Words for more dedicated Legacy action. Today we are playing in the Legacy Showcase Challenge. So what this is a multi-round tournament with a cut to top 8. The winner gets a place in the Legacy Online Championship. So a lot higher stakes tournament than what we're normally playing on the channel, and it's going to be a longer video because there's going to be more rounds. So I've decided to play the Dark Depths deck that I top 4'd a paper tournament with last week. So the aim of the game is play Dark Depths and either copy it with Thespian stage or remove all the counters with Hexmage to create a 2020 indestructible flyer and kill our opponent dead with that in one swing, using either Sejiri Steppe to push it through or Not of This World to protect it long enough to get through. We also have a bunch of discard spells to get rid of the things that are going to stop us. Lots of tutor effects in crop rotations and Sylvan Scryings. Pithing Needles to deal with problem permanents like Wasteland, Caracas, that sort of thing. And we've also got a few silver bullets on our lands in the form of Ghost Quarter and Sejiri Steppe. And we got mana acceleration via Elvish Spirit Guide and Lotus Petal to make a 2020 as early as turn 1. The one change from the previous list I played is the Boseiju. We had one Boseiju, one Caracas last time. This time we've got two Boseiju. The reason being is Caracas normally, if you're tutoring for that, something that's gone wrong, often anyway, and if you are shooting for this to push your way through with the 2020, the chances are that Sejiri Steppe is probably going to do the same job anyway. So it's a bit redundant having both in some ways. And also, Caracas is a white source that doesn't tap for any of our important colours, so it can really mess up your opening hands. Whereas Boseiju is a green source, so it gets us started on crop rotations and Sylvan Scryings. So it's just a better card to have in your opening hand and to sort of evaluate how you're going to progress the game. Also, if we have two of them, it means we can happily play the first one knowing that we can tutor out the other one if we need to later. Whereas sometimes you'd be in this awkward situation where you might dangle out the wrong land because you're worried about dangling out the Boseiju too early. That's pretty much it for changes-wise. The reason I like black-green, if you didn't watch my previous video, is because it gives us access to two basic lands in terms of the forest and the swamp, as well as these 4 Verdant Catacombs. So you can play land go without putting something out that can be wastelanded on turn 1, because Verdant Catacomb obviously can't be wastelanded, so you can avoid wasteland in a different way to like trying to stifle it or whatever. You can just play out your Verdant Catacomb and then untap and then have all the mana you need to go off pretty much. So that's why I like that. And the reason why the basics are good is because I think Abrupt Decay is the best sideboard answer card, because this can hit Magus of the Moon, Blood Moon, Opposition Agent, whether it's creature or non-creature, this gets the problem permanent out of the way. And it can't be countered, so you don't have to worry about how am I going to try and force this through? You don't have time to draw a discard spell. You just know it's going to work, which is what I really like, especially when we can combo off without using the stack for spells in terms of a Thespian stage Dark Depths kill. So I think this is really important. A few other little sideboard things we got here is all the same. So if you know me, you know I love Leyline the Void. It's just the best answer to graveyards. And this is a deck where it doesn't necessarily need the game to go that long and draw that many cards. So the opening hand usually has what you need in it. So you can evaluate your hand, not worrying about drawing a Leyline of the Void. It's going to mess up your draws because you're not depending on future draws really with this deck. And we've got a couple of Duresses to shore up the matchups where our opponent's keeping cards in hand, whether that's Storm or Control. Things that aren't playing to the board, this is how we can mess with them. Steely Resolve. If our opponent is trying to remove our 2020, Steely Resolve can shut down Caracas, it can shut down Solitude, it can shut down Swords to Plowshares, Prismatic Ending, Teferi, it does everything. Force of Vigor is just a very flexible way of being able to blow up problem permanents as early as turn 0 sometimes. So this can blow up Painter's Servant combo, it can blow up various 8-cast things, prison decks trying to play like turn 1 Blood Moon or whatever. It just gives us a nice card with flexibility. Now, we don't have a Caracas in our 75, which may come back to bite us, but I think the logic is sound on why the Boseiju is better, and what better field to test that out than the Legacy Showcase. Alright, so before the tournament starts, let me just say, likes, comments and subscribes. These cost you nothing and really help me out, so please do them. Alright, let's play the Legacy Showcase. Right, welcome to the first round. We are on the play, our opponent is a 60 card deck. Our opening hand is unplayable right now, so we should mulligan that one. We can keep this one. It's not perfect, but it'll do. We can keep this one, and we have choices of what we throw back here. We need one more land to go off with Hexmage, but we can Sylvan Scrying for the right thing. I think we can throw back the Scrying here and just poke holes with the Thoughtseizes. A lot of our deck is ways of finding more lands, so I think we're all right here. We can get a little bit messed up by our wasteland. Right, let's Thoughtseize our opponent. What have you got? Swords to Plowshares and Prismatic Ending. We will take the Plow. Our opponent's just got a whole bunch of mana in hand right now. It looks like they're possibly the 60 card Zenith pile, or they could be Hot Bant. We will find out. So let's have a look. We can play out our Verdant Catacombs here. We can Thoughtseize again, and then next turn play Vampire Hexmage Dark Depths. If that doesn't work, we can follow it up with something else. A Life from Loam and Prismatic Ending. Okay, we'll just take the ending and then say go. So they got 4 lands and a Life from Loam. There's a Misty Rainforest. This is going to be the Life from the Loam, I suspect. It's often better to try and go for the Hexmage. If you know there's not counter spells, it's better to go for the Hexmage than the Thespian stage, because if you fail with the Hexmage, you have more resources to work with again. Whereas the Thespian stage costs your Dark Depths and your Thespian stage. Yep, so there's the Life from Loam we suspected. We can crack this. We'll get ourselves a Bayou. We'll play out this Dark Depths. We'll play out this Lotus Petal in case our opponent has a Daze. Seems unlikely given the setup, but it's free for us to play around it. Black, black. Let's make the guy. They can't have Force of Will blue card here. Alright, so now we have a choice of whether or not we make our guy in the end step or we make it in the upkeep. I think we make it in the end step because we've already seen Prismatic Ending from our opponent. There's Tundra. And if they have a Wasteland, we can play around it because we can play our Thespian stage. Alright, let's try and make a 20-20. Okay, we're gaining 20 life. Let's go to attacks. This could be an endurance, a dress down. Okay, so this is trying to dig into finding a Swords to Plowshares. Okay, they didn't have it. So game on to us in pretty quick time. I think our opponent is going to try and remove our creature more than anything. So I think these Steely Resolves are going to be where I want to be. We've seen Life from Loam from our opponent, which means we should realistically expect to have Wastelands in their deck. A pretty fair concession, I would say. Crop rotation, less good against decks that are probably running counter magic. So I think we can probably trim on the crop rotation for Steely Resolve. We can go a little bit slower because they're not going to be pressuring our life total that much. We have the option of bringing in these 2 Duresses, which I don't hate. I think that's pretty reasonable. Is there anything that we would want to cut for them is the question. None of our lands really come out in this matchup. I think we want all of these. Bojuka Bog is going to be good against their presumable Uro as well as their Life from the Loam. We can trim on some of the mana acceleration potentially. I think we're probably just alright where we are. The mana base they have didn't look like it would be supporting anything like Back to Basics or Blood Moon. Obviously Blood Moon and Back to Basics, we have to play around them in different ways, but I don't think we require to play around either of those. We could have 1 Abrupt Decay instead of this crop rotation, but I do like having the ability to have a crop rotation in our deck. So I think we'll just submit like this. This isn't a matchup where we need the Leylines, because yes, they're a Life from Loam deck, but their Life from Loam engine is not going to kill us in the sort of time that it takes, really. We are either going to win or lose the game before Life from Loam takes over the game, I would say. This opening hand, this makes a turn 3 Marit Lage around a Wasteland and around any counter magic. Because we play Thespian Stage, Pithing Needle, and then next turn we play Dark Depths, the turn after we play a land, and we use a Spirit Guide. So a turn 3 20-20 in this matchup is probably okay, but it's going to give our opponent a lot of chance to draw into better things. We have an answer for the Caracas as well. I think this is the low end of what I would keep, so we're going to give it a go. Now, this gets vastly improved by a whole bunch of draws. We are a little shy on green mana, though. That's something we have to be careful about. A Tundra. There a Ponder? There is a Ponder, sure. An Urborg. That's a pretty good draw for us. So I think we are on play Urborg, Pithing Needle on Wasteland. By playing the Urborg out, it means that if we draw a Hexmage next turn, we might just be able to go off straight away. Now it's our opponent's turn. A Scalding Tarn. So they can tap this for black mana because it's a swamp. Nothing from our opponent. Interesting. Steely Resolve. Okay, I like this one. I think we'll play out our Thespian stage. And we will exile this and tap this to cast our Steely Resolve. This is probably Force of Willable. Okay. So we name Avatar, which is a type that Marit Lages. So next turn we can make a 20-20. We can't be wastelanded off of it. They can't Caracas our creature. They can't target with any removal. We're in a pretty solid spot here. And I believe Dress Down doesn't work with Steely Resolve because of layers, but I might be wrong on that one. We might be about to find out. So we'll see. Sure. Okay, and end of turn Brainstorm as well as their end of turn. So they Brainstorm, fetch, Brainstorm, which is quite the desperation play, I would say. You'd rather try and Brainstorm on the following turn and get maximum value, especially in a deck like this, which is very much on the control end of the spectrum. Like a combo deck, just trying to find that last piece it needs would make sense to me. Okay, so they're cracking, shuffling away one card from their Brainstorm. Savannah. An Uro. Sure. You'd like to see another card. So this means it's going to take us 2 shots to hit our opponent with a Dark Depths token, which is an important distinction, actually. A Bayou. This turn, we will just play this one out, and we'll pass. So we have to hit our opponent twice with our Merit Lage. Now, our opponent doesn't have the ability to target our creature at present because it will have Shroud. A Ponder from our opponent, sure. So that's not the Uro coming in this turn. Now, the Uro doesn't really make a difference unless they have a fetch land. If they have a fetch land and go down to 20, then they need to play their Uro unless they have an answer to our Merit Lage, which seems a difficult thing for our opponent to answer right now. A Wasteland that doesn't do anything, followed by a Minsk and Boo. Sure. Just going to attack. It shouldn't attack. They should hold it back to draw 4 cards with next turn to try and find answers to what we're representing. Right, so this will copy this. We'll pay for it using these 2. We'll keep them without counters. Make a 20/20. Play this Bojuka Bog. Exile our opponent's graveyard. Strips them of access to Uro. It attacks. We attack them. This will shut off fetch lands. We're only 1 card away from being able to make another Merit Lage anyway, if this one doesn't work. But it's got Shroud. And we're on 20 life here, so it should be difficult for our opponent to beat us here. They're probably going to attack for 4, and then they're going to throw it at us for another 4 and draw 4 cards. Yeah, okay, so here's the draw. So they need, like, land that isn't a fetch land, Supreme Verdict, and Dress Down. I think that does it here. It's quite a specific selection of things, so I don't mind. Well, I would mind a little bit if they had it, but okay. So this fetch land, actually, they can tap it for black because of our own Urborg. Okay, so they just have a Terminus. Okay. So again, we're 1 card off of making our Merit Lage again. So what we're actually going to do this turn is make an Elvish Spirit Guide to attack with. Oop. So they have to hold back their Minsk and Boo on blocks here. So if we draw a Sylvan Scrying, we can go off on the following turn. If we draw a Crop Rotation, we might be able to go off this turn. If we draw a Vampire Hexmage, we might be able to go off this turn. But our opponent can't attack with their Minsk and Boo because they're on 2 life, unless they've got a follow-up threat. Our Urborg enabled our opponent to actually make that Terminus. They're going to exile our Pithing Needle, sure. A little bit problematic, but we're still okay here. Precipitation. We might just be able to Sejiri Steppe our Elvish Spirit Guide to crash for 2, which would be quite a fun play. So these are only black sources of mana right now. It's going to be a plow on our Spirit Guide. Okay. Feels like they might be waiting. Oh, no, green mana, interesting. And black. White. Okay, so they are ploughing our Spirit Guides so they can attack this turn. That makes sense to me. I think this game is probably slipping away from us now. But we've got a little bit more information about what's in our opponent's deck. It is the Hot Band deck rather than the 4-colour Zenith, the 60-card version. So what do we got now? We've got another Urborg. Got a Ghost Quarter. So we'll play our Ghost Quarter out so we can strip out their Wasteland if we need to. So this turn we take 7, and then we die the following turn to the Minsk and Boo activation. So we might need a little bit of help. I'm pretty sure we've lost this game, and we're going to have to go to a game 3. But we have more information and we're on the play. This is going to come across for 7. Now, you could argue that Caracas would be a useful card to have in this situation, but we wouldn't have drawn it because I haven't drawn either Boseiju. And it's not something we would tutor for in this situation because it's not really an answer to a problem. It's like delaying a problem that we have here. Another Minsk and Boo. Okay, so this is just going to sacrifice the guy, ping it in our face, and deal us 7 and draw 7. All right. So, any changes sideboard-wise? Slightly more into having some Duresses here. I think we can squeeze one of those in instead of the Crop Rotation. Now, has our opponent just boarded out their counter magic is another question that we have to answer, because that is the thing that you sometimes do when your plan is just to remove things, but because we've shown in the Steely Resolve, that might not be the case. I think, would I rather have 1 Crop Rotation in our deck or an additional Duress? I think probably the Crop Rotation, if I'm being honest with myself. Right, let's submit and go again. The other option we had in that previous game was to, when we played the Bojuka Bog, we could have wastelanded our own Urborg just take them off of the ability to use fetch lands. But that would mean that they could still cast their Uro, but it means they wouldn't have been able to Terminus. Now, I wasn't entirely sure they had Terminus in their deck. So maybe that line would have been, it probably would have won, given what we know now, but we didn't know that at the time. So, we're on the play. We can go and get our thing. We have a lot of protection for it. I think this all seems pretty good. It's not the fastest hand, but it does a decent amount of stuff that we want it to do. Opponent's mulligan to 6 cards. Okay, I think we lead out on the Thespian stage into Pithing Needle. If we draw additional Pithing Needles later, they could go on Minsk and Boo or Caracas. We have a bunch of options. But we have Not of This World and we have Steely Resolve. So we have our guy covered. Flooded Strand. Cracking their Flooded Strand. Tundra probably into a Ponder. Yep, there's the Ponder. They shuffled their libraries. That's a reasonable sign for us there. So, I think this turn we want to Verdant Catacombs. Crack this for I guess we're probably in Bayou territory, given our opponent's deck. We'll cast a Sylvan Scrying. Is this good enough for a counter spell? Okay, we'll get this Dark Depths into our hand. And then we'll pass the turn. So we can make our thing next turn with Not of This World backup. So depending on what our opponent does, we might want to do that. So we can use the Elvish Spirit Guide for this, and then Not of This World, whatever their removal spell of choice is. It's a little bit riskier because it exposes us to counter spells straight up, but we will see how this game goes, because obviously they have a lot of tools in their decks, so they might be able to get... Okay, this is an expressive iteration where they only get to keep 1 card from it because they've already played a land for the turn. So this is a bit of a desperation play from our opponent, which I like to see. A Tropical Island is exiled. So that's back over to us. And this is a key turn. We have to decide what we're doing here. We're definitely playing out our Dark Depths. We can either hold up or we can play our Steely Resolve. Opponent's got 6 cards in hand. How many removal spells we think our opponent is going to be able to throw at us this turn? I think we can potentially surprise our opponent with a Spirit Guide here. Force of Vigor on the Pithing Needle. Okay. So our opponent is probably going to wasteland our Dark Depths this turn. No. Okay. So I think we're going to just go to our turn here, rather than getting a bit angsty with things. So, if we play out our Verdant Catacombs, let's crack our Verdant Catacombs. Let's get ourselves a Bayou. Let's cast a Pithing Needle. The last one was good. Okay, cracking their fetch hand in response. So name Wasteland because the last one was pretty good. So, we could play the Steely Resolve here. But if our opponent taps out from Minsk and Boo, then we can just kill them on the backswing with protection. If our opponent taps out, which I think is worth doing here. So I think our opponent might feel pressured into doing that. Okay, maybe not. So this looks like they might be setting up a Terminus, perhaps. We'll see what they do. If they shuffle all this away, then that's fine. If they don't shuffle it away, we need to play around Terminus, which means we kind of have to let our opponent draw 2 cards. Okay, we're just going to hold back again. We're going to play out our Lotus Petal. We will crack these 2. Trying to work out what's the best mana to use with this. I think it is these. It's the way that seems most likely that we won't have something going on here. Let's try a Steely Resolve. So there's our avatar. Now, we can still make a 20/20 because we have this Elvish Spirit Guide. Okay, so they've shuffled, which means they didn't have a Terminus. So we might have got away with it last turn. But I think this way we have so much covered. And even if they play an Uro, their life total is going to be below 20. So we're kind of just hoping that our opponent taps out for something, just to make it even more likely that we get our creature into play. Tense game, this one. Alright, let's make a copy. I'm not sure how the layers of Steely Resolve work, but we might be about to find out. Mystic Sanctuary. Putting Force of Vigor on top of their library. Okay. And a Dress Down. Sure. So our creature does no longer has Shroud. Understood. Leyline Binding. Okay. So I'll target our Marit Lage. We will counter this ability. I'm glad we saved up to have the maximum protection. Alright, we got the match. So we played that one really slow and carefully, making sure that we established all of our protection. We played around a potential Terminus, and we got there in the end. So that is a good start to the tournament. We are 1-0. Let's see you in the next round. Alright, we're into round 2 now. We are on the draw. This is our opening hand. what does this achieve for us? So we can do a Sylvan Scrying turn 1 to get a Dark Depths or an Urborg. And then we can make a turn 2 Hexmage Depths, I think, with this hand. Turn 1 we make this. Turn 2 we play the Dark Depths. We play this. I guess if we pop both of our Spirit Guides turn 1 for this to get an Urborg, we can play the Urborg out. And then next turn we can crop rotate using our Verdant Catacombs. Turn 2 2020, I guess it's good enough. We don't have to do the Sylvan Scrying on turn 1 if we don't want to. Okay, our opponent's mulligan to 5 cards. This means I would like to keep our Spirit Guides back for potential Bojuka Bog shenanigans here. Let's see what our opponent does. Badlands. This is probably a Reanimator. Oh no, could be the Epic Storm. Let's see what they put into the Chrome Box. Should give us the information we need. What is it? A Brainstorm. Okay, this feels... Okay. So we have a play. We can remove all the counters from their Wishclaw Talisman if we want to. Or we can just play a Pithing Needle on Wishclaw Talisman. I like to do that. So let's crack this for a Bayou. Let's play out this on Wishclaw Talisman. And we don't need to do our Sylvan Scrying now, so we'll be pitching 2 Spirit Guides. We can do it next turn. We know that our things are going to resolve as well. We can get punished if we get hit by like a Duress or something. But this is fine. I know our opponent, if they are on the Epic Storm, which this seems very likely they are, the Ghost Quarter will hit them and they won't have any basics to find. So I'm relatively happy about that. Plateau, yeah. So this looks like the build with the silencers in. So we have a Boseiju. We can play some sort of weird mana denial strategy. So if we exile Spirit Guide, cast this Sylvan Scrying, go and get Dark Depths, play the Dark Depths, crop rotate this away for an Urborg, cast this. Who's the Storm player now? I played loads of things that turn. So our opponent's got this turn to win with 1 card in hand. Sure. So we got the win there. The Pithing Needle ended up being pretty good. So things that are useful in this matchup. Now, useful and good are very different things. So we have all of these cards that have potential here. This is not going to be a game for Not of This World, in my opinion, so we can board those out. The Sejiri Steppe probably isn't really going to be necessary in this matchup, I wouldn't say. The Bojuka Bog might be, if they like leave a Echo Vions hanging around. I don't think we need Abrupt Decays. The Force of Vigor is better than Abrupt Decay here for sure. We definitely want the Duresses. They're straight in. That's one of our best tools in this matchup. I like the Needles. I like all of these bits, really. Ghost Quarter is okay here. But would I rather have these Leylines than a Ghost Quarter? I think I probably can do something along these lines. This shuts down Echo Vion's plans. And the Duresses hopefully poke enough holes in what they're doing so they can't win. And then we can just win doing our bits and pieces. Seems fine to me. Let's submit. They can have a bounce spell for our guy, but that's not how they should be approaching this matchup. Their deck is faster than ours, so they should just go under what we're doing. If they're boarding in things to stop what we're doing, I think that's going to end badly for them. So I don't think I'm going to try and play around any of that by keeping Not of This World or anything. I think the plan here is to disrupt them, make a 2020, and assume they're not going to have any answers to it. I'd much rather have answers to them. They are the aggressor in this matchup. They're the one who are trying to win first, I would say. Okay, so we have a turn 3 2020 with 3 pieces of hand disruption. This is a snap keep. Now we can lose turn 1 to this deck. Although this deck tends to not be a turn 1 deck. But it can be. But also they can just set up a Galvanic Relay, which kind of blanks all of our discard. So our opponent's mulligan to 6. But we do have turn 1 Urborg, Thoughtseize, turn 2 Thespian Stage, Duress, and then follow up with the Dark Depths, make a 2020. So we should hopefully be able to burn a hole in our opponent's hand, but it looks like they're going for a potential Echo Vions play here. If they're going to keep mulligan in, they could end up going down to 2 cards just for an Echo Vions. But let's see what our opponent does. Okay, so they are going off this turn, I would imagine, or doing something this turn, like probably a Galvanic Relay, a Dark Ritual, into a Wishclaw Talisman, sure, with 1 mana floating. Lion's Eye Diamond, so this 1 mana will go and... Okay, so they're going to go and get the Echo Vions here. Oh no, they're just going to get Ad Nauseam, actually, put an Ad Nauseam in the stack. That's pretty good too. So our opponent does have a fail rate here. So on 16, they've got a lot of mana working Now, let's have a look. Slaughter Pact. That's not what I'm expecting to see out of our opponent, truth be told. Arms Chant. Okay, they should be able to win off of this lot, right? Let's yield through the turn and let them go through it. And just in case we see any other things. We've seen the Slaughter Pacts are still in their deck. So we got an Aurim's Chant, which is pretty standard for these decks right now. Slaughter Pacts, they're going to Thoughtseize us. And just see stuff that they know is in our deck, so I don't mind this Thoughtseize resolving. So they got 2 floating. They've got a bunch of Lion's Eye Diamonds. So what's Storm count right now? 14. Yep, so they have Lethal Storm, so they can put a Burning Wish on the stack, crack LEDs if they want to. They know we don't have anything going on here. We can scoop this one up. There you go. Okay, so didn't see our Leylines. Not that they use Leylines in that one. That's why I don't like mulliganing to Leyline in this sort of matchup. I think it's just fine as is. Abrupt Decay does hit Wishclaw Talisman, but Pithing Needle does that as well and costs 1 less. So I think that is the better play. Then we just resubmit, and the fact that we're on the play means that we get to hopefully dress our opponent before they get to do anything. That's the plan anyway. We had a pretty good hand. Like on the play, I think that hand wins a solid 90% of the time in that matchup. But on the draw, we didn't get to cast a spell. As sometimes is the way. Now, we've seen the prismatic endings are still in our opponent's deck, so we don't want to be bringing in... we don't want to be making our 2020 at sorcery speed. We want to be able to do it end of turn and then swing to dodge that, which should be relatively easy to do. Now, the one way that this can get messed up is if they Orange Chant us as well. So they can... If they have an Orange Chant and a prismatic ending, both of these two things together mean that they can stop us attacking for a turn. But hopefully we can poke a hole in that anyway. We can keep this hand. We can begin with a Duress. We have the Crop Rotation, so on turn 4, it's a little bit slow. We have a couple of pieces of disruption here. Let's see how low our opponent goes hand-wise. So we'll lead out on a Bayou. We will Duress our opponent with these horrible art Duresses. I don't know where they're from. Double Burning Wish, 2 Lotus Petals, Wishclaw Talisman. Interesting. The double Burning Wish is going to be hard to fight through. Are we supposed to just get rid of the mana here? I think we're probably supposed to get rid of the mana. Leave them with the Wishclaw. If they burn a petal to put the Wishclaw down, we get to Pithing Needle it. This could be a tough matchup. This is not one of the matchups you particularly want to see when you're playing Black-Green Depths because they can race you pretty easily. Sure. Is this going to be a Wishclaw Talisman or a Burning Wish? Probably a Wishclaw Talisman. Sure. So we get to do a similar play that we had before, but this time we have 2 Burning Wishes in hand to follow up with. Okay, so we will play this Pithing Needle out. We will name Wishclaw Talisman. Now we have a choice. We can either play out our forest here and play out a Pithing Needle, or we can hold up the Crop Rotation in case we need some sort of other line. Now, if we play the Pithing Needle, what are we realistically naming here? I don't know if there's actually a name that I particularly want other than fetch lands, and I think that's a bit of a shot in the dark. I think the Crop Rotation just as an option is a better choice here. So that's what we're going to keep up. It's unlikely that our opponent puts a Echo in the graveyard without spinning it, but it's not impossible. Because we don't get priority to exile it if they put it in the graveyard and immediately cast it. So there's going to be a Burning Wish. What are they going to find with their Burning Wish? A Prismatic Ending, sure. So we're going to play this on the Pithing Needle. We're going to play another Pithing Needle here. Sylvan Scrying. We don't really need that one just yet, do we? So we can go Pithing Needle on Wishclaw Talisman. And then we can hold up the Crop Rotation as a protection spell if we then go and get Sylvan Scrying. No, because we need to play the Dark Depths if we do that, and we don't have Sylvan Scrying available. So I guess we just play the Dark Depths here. And next turn we can Crop Rotate end of turn for the Thespian stage here. So we kind of wasted our opponent's Burning Wish on getting this Prismatic Ending that's not going to do anything. Now we did mention the Orim's Chant line that our opponent can take by chanting and then Prismatic Ending our Dark Depths token. Yep, okay. So getting rid of one of our needles. So that's a Prismatic Ending gone. A Lotus Petal, sure. We've got one card in hand that we know, which is the Burning Wish. Does this change anything here? I don't think it does. I think we just have to play out the Verdant Catacombs here and then Crop Rotate. I guess if we'd have We could have got an Urborg, actually. If we'd have got the Urborg with this and this, then we play the Urborg, then we can transmute that. Okay, yeah, so we could have saved the crop rotation as an answer there. All right. Not the cleanest to play there. An Underground Sea, a Burning Wish enhanced. So cast this Burning Wish, we at least get to see what they get, so we can measure our play around that. These decks don't have swords in, at least not in the builds I've been watching people playing have. So it's probably red mana for the Burning Wish here. Sure. 1 times Burning Wish. What are you going to get? Could be a bounce spell. They have a Lotus Petal for blue mana. Although if you're getting a bounce spell, maybe you don't cast the Underground Sea there. Echo of Eons. Let's crack this. Let's go to Bayou. Let's crop rotate this land away. Get Thespian stage. Let's copy our Dark Depths. Okay, our opponents scooped that one up. They didn't have the ability to do an Auram's Chant line there because they didn't have 2 cards in hand. But we could have done that slightly cleaner if we'd have got the Urborg. Although we'd still have to be using our crop rotation actually, so that doesn't make a difference what I'm talking about. There's no way that we could get the pieces we need in play and hold back the crop rotation to protect our guy on that turn. But we knew our opponent's hand, so they only had 1 blank card that we didn't know. Yeah, pretty happy with that one. We managed to win the game on the draw in the first game, so that was quite nice. Not much else to say about that other than we're 2-0 in very quick time. So I'll see you in the 3rd round. Okay, we're into round 3 now. We're on the draw. This is our opening hand. This hand does not find a Dark Depth, so we have to mulligan. This hand also does not find a Dark Depth, so we have to mulligan. This hand also doesn't find a Dark Depth. This hand has a turn 3 20/20 with protection. We'll keep this. So we're keeping these 3, which means we get rid of 1, 2, 3. A Wasteland undoes us, but we're on a multi-4, so sometimes you just got to play the odds a little bit and hope you get there. Urza's Saga. Okay. A Mox Opal. I'd imagine this is Mono Blue Painter. Does this change the clock that we're working on here? I don't think so. We'll play out this Urborg. I think we'll play out this Petal as well. And then we'll pass. This represents green mana, so it might change our opponent's mind if they try and interact with our lands, because we might be able to crop rotate in response and get some value. Now, what I am a little bit concerned about is the opponent's Urza Saga naming Thespian stage in the very near future. A Duress. Okay, let's fire this off first and see how we go. Metallic Rebuke, sure. We cannot pay 3. We'll play our Dark Depths rather than our Thespian stage to try and hide the fact that we have the stage, so maybe they name Hexmage with the Urza Saga if it gets a Pithing Needle. I imagine it gets Pithing Needle here, or it gets Grindstone and we die. These are the 2 options. Let's see which one of those options it is. A Spell Bomb, sure. Okay, that's fine for us. We have a protection spell. Now we have to resolve the protection spell, but we have it. If we draw a Duress, we get to fire off the Duress as well, because these 3 lands alone make a 20/20. So if we can draw a Duress or a Thoughtseize this turn, that would be ideal. A Sylvan Scrying. Okay. I don't think it's going to get better than it is right now. So we're going to make this our opponent's end step, I think. I imagine our opponent's on the Painter because they have the Metallic Rebuke, which is normally only in Painter rather than 8-cast, but they might be trying a new 8-cast build with some Metallic Rebukes in. Let's see what our opponent has. A Thought Monitor. Okay. So we can win if we Sylvan Scrying for the Sejiri Steppe to push our way through. I don't think it's getting a better spot because of how many cards our opponent has. So I think we just have to go for this now. I imagine they spellbomb it now, so we don't have... So it's going to cost us more if we want to do some sort of crop rotation shenanigans to protect ourselves. Not that crop rotation can protect versus spellbomb. It's important to note. So we have a crop rotation that we can fire off here. Or we can just do a good old-fashioned Sylvan Scrying. Let's go for Sylvan Scrying, I think. Like, a Force of Will does beat us here. But we got to play the game. We did multi-4. And we can fade 1 particular card from our opponent's hand and we can win the game still. We'll get Sejiri Steppe. Play this. Give our creature protection from blue. Go to attacks. Do they have it? They have to have Force of Will and blue card here. They've drawn quite a few cards. They've got 3 Thought casts and a Thought Monitor. They didn't have a blue card, so we got the win on the multi-4. I'll take it. Whew, this gets better post-board as well because we have access to Abrupt Decays. We have access to Force of Vigors. We have access to Leylines if we want them as well. So we have quite a lot that we can do here. Even Steely Resolve has some relatively interesting text. Now we're going to have to try and punch through some of the time, but they tend not to have as many Thoughtseize as the regular 8-cast builds. So Pithing Needle can hit Sai, it can hit their spell bombs and things, it can hit Otawara. So I think that's probably better than Not of This World. So we have some discard stuff, which is useful, but I think our opponent has a lot of ways of ignoring. They might be able to play a Chalice, for example, which can hurt us here. I also think crop rotation against a deck that's got a bunch of blue cards in isn't really where I want to be. So I think we can board like this. So we're going to play a slightly slower game, but we're going to have the ability to blow up our opponent's things in quite a big way. We do still need Bojuka Bog, we do still need Ghost Quarter, and we do still need Sejiri Steppe. So these are all things I'd like to keep in the deck. It's just a case of, do I want any crop rotations or Steely Resolves? Like Leyline in the Void in this matchup is pretty reasonable. It deals with Emery, but then again, so does Pithing Needle. Maybe we don't need the Leylines and we can have 2 and 2 split of these. Or do you just want a third Steely Resolve? Let's take the 3 Steely Resolves here. The reason these are better than the Not of This World is because if these are in play, I know that they're working. And this game is going to be not blisteringly fast. Alright, we'll go for this. This is also slightly more green cards for the purposes of our Force of Vigor if we need to cast it super duper early. So this does make a 20-20. But there are some limitations here. I think we do keep this one, especially on the draw. So the other side. So this could be a turn 3 painter win. Okay. Interesting if true. So the highest upside play that we can make here is crop rotation for Urborg and then Thoughtseize our opponent. But if we get hit by a Force of Will, this is going to look pretty bad. I think we do it though. Like, it's a 2 for 2, which isn't the worst. Okay, Force of Will pitching Thoughtcast. Sure. Okay. Now, we still have our combo wrapped up in our hand. We do need some coloured mana. That's our only green source, but that was also our only green spell. And we need to have black to have the best chance here. Painted Servant, sure. So now we can resolve the Pithing Needle on Grindstone. Like so. So they have a multitude of ways of getting rid of a Pithing Needle that's in play. They can bounce it. They might be able to Haywire Might it. They might be able to Hydroblast it. They've got options. So we're a little bit under the gun here. Okay, so they just got a Mox. And they got a Bauble. It's pretty good in blue. Sorry, not Pyroblast. Because they've named blue with this. Which means they probably don't have Hydroblast in their deck, actually. Especially since the second one also named blue. I think if you have Hydroblast in your deck, the second one names red. So that's some information that we can work with. Not that Hydroblast is good against us unless they thought we were on the Stifle build and they maybe want that. So an Urborg would be the best draw for us, I think, right now. Force of Vigor. Not quite so good. So I think we play another Pithing Needle here. So we have a choice. We can do another Grindstone one or we can do one on Urza's Saga. Both of these are options we should be thinking about. Do I think I can beat the Urza's Saga tokens in time? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think we name the Urza's Saga. And then we have a choice here of what we play. I think I'm going to play out my Dark Depths now. So they can't make tokens here. They can't Grindstone us out. They have to blow up one of these Pithing Needles to do much more. Okay, so there's the Grindstone. So Haywire Might wins them the game. A Bounce Spell wins them the game. Another Painted Servant. Sure, 1 card left in our opponent's hand. We can no longer Force of Vigor to stop them Grindstoning unless we hit the Grindstone, which I would like to do. So next turn, this Urza's Saga gets a Haywire Might. So drawing a green card would be good. Drawing an uncastable spell, not really where we want to be. We can copy the Spire of Industry. Actually, no, we can't because our Dark Depths doesn't tap for mana. So we should lose to the Haywire Might this turn. We might get one more bite of the cherry, depending on how much mana they can assemble. Because they need to use 1 mana to pop the Haywire Might. So this is 1 mana, 2 mana, 1 for the Haywire Might. So if they've got a land in hand, they kill us this turn. So let's see. So there's a Haywire Might. Sell us another land. Goodbye, Pithing Needle. Okay, so they got the Mox Opal, so that's enough. We'll concede to that. Alright, do we have any changes for being on the play? The crop rotation did kind of cause us a bit of trouble there. So I think we'll have another Duress on the play. So we've got 6 uncountable ways of blowing up Painted Servant between Abrupt Decay and Boseiju. Should be pretty good. We have a Ghost Quarter that can hit our opponents as a Saga. Our hand, we basically lost to our own fail rate there. Maybe the play on turn 1 for the Crop rotation is greedy. But if that resolves, we almost certainly win the game. And if we don't get a black source, we're probably not winning that game anyway. Now, we would have been able to have made a 2020 slightly... We would have been able to make one that game, but whether or not it would be good enough, I don't know. So what does this hand do? This hand doesn't make a Marit Lage, so we need to mulligan it. This hand also doesn't make a Marit Lage. This hand does make a Marit Lage. All right, so we'll keep these. We want to keep the Boseiju, I think. I don't know if we've got time for Steely Resolve. Do we want this? I don't think we want the Sylvan Scrying here. Although it is a green card for the purposes of Force of Vigor is the issue here. So if we throw back a Thespian stage, we need to draw a land. But I think that's okay. I think we'll start out with this. We have the ability to Force of Vigor stuff. We can Sylvan Scrying. If we draw another green card, we can Sylvan Scrying for like an Urborg or something. Or a Yavimaya. So we have options. An Emery. Sure, let's see what this Emery digs up. Nothing too scary. Like the Mox is a little bit annoying, and the fact they have got the Borball means they get redraws, but hopefully this game shouldn't go that long that the redraws matter. That's how we'd like to play this one out. We can also draw a Pithing Needle and put it on Emery. So, I think we play out the Verdant Catacombs. So we'll crack it now to get ourselves a Bayou. And we don't need to tutor for anything just yet. We're just going to hold up the Boseiju. So we have Boseiju and Force of Vigor. So it's going to be relatively hard for our opponent to combo us. But whether or not our combo manages to slip through and deal them damage, that's the hard part. Interesting that they didn't use the Bauble because they need the Metalcraft. Let's see what they're going with here. A Master Thoughteize. This one is a bit annoying, truth be told, because this can make a load of tokens that we can't really get around. So most painter builds don't have this, so it's kind of annoying they do have it. Okay, so they have a Grindstone. They got a bunch of stuff here. And they're cracking their Bauble. Sure. Back over to us. What are we going to have? A Verdant Catacombs. Not the most exciting. I think we play out our Dark Depths. We hold up our Boseiju and Verdant Catacombs. And our Force of Vigor. So we're definitely under the gun on this one. If they play a Painter, we can leave the Painter in play so that our Sejiri Steppe can name blue and we can cruise through the tokens. Let's get rid of this Grindstone. So this is an uncounterable way of removing that Grindstone. They will get an island out of this, and I imagine they probably have 2 in their deck. This Painted Servant is going to help us though. This has become part of our win condition. This means Sejiri Steppe will be lethal. Haywire Might. Okay. This is important because it lets them gain 2 life. I'm going to take a little bit of damage here, but that's fine. Okay. Crack this now. Go and get ourselves a Bayou. We'll pass the turn. So we can make a 2020. We have a Force of Vigor. Is this... Let me just check. Okay, so they can exile their own things. So some people run the Tower of the Magistrate, which gives them the ability to cast the... that gives the Turbo Depths deck the ability to push through Thoughtseize tokens. So we have a choice here. We can let this Grindstone come into play, and then we can blow up the Painted Servant. So basically, we wait for them to activate it. The one downside for that is if we tap out for this, we don't get to do our Force of Vigor. So our opponent can get us here. Like they have the far superior draw here. So we have to try and outplay our opponent by getting to activate Grindstone now. Okay, so we have some choices here. We get rid of both halves of the combo, that buys us the most amount of time. If we get rid of just the Grindstone, everything is still blue, so we can win next turn, but they can gain 2 life if they see that line. And then they can just kill us next turn if they don't see that line. This is tough. We definitely have to blow up the Grindstone. The question is, are we blowing up something like Seat of the Synod? We can blow up Haywire Might here, so they don't have the mana to use their Haywire Might. If we blow up the Lotus Petal here. We have to blow up the Painter so we don't lose, actually, don't we? What am I talking about? Right, let's exile this. We can't leave the Painter in play because our opponent can... the Grindstone activation still gets us. This was a mistake from our opponent. They should do this on our upkeep to play around Force of Vigor. Now, if they've got a counter spell, fair enough. But they gave us the opportunity to win this game. But they didn't need to. They have the Force of Will. Sure. We'll concede the game. So our first loss on the board. Our opponent's draw there was pretty great. They had their combo rolled up. They also had the Sai, which adds another dimension of problems for us. and our hand wasn't great. We did win on the Multi 4. We had a bit of a slow hand here, and we would have had to have punched through the Thoughtseize tokens, which would have been difficult as well. Sai is not usually tech that you see in this deck. They don't run this so they can run the combo. But it worked quite well for our opponent that time, so fair enough, but we've still got a lot of tournament left to play. Alright, well, I'll see you in the next round. We're on the play for round 4. What does our hand do? That is a good question. So we can Urborg for black mana, then we can Lotus Petal to crop rotate our Urborg. But then where do we go? So we need one more land to make this a turn 2. I think with the Thoughtseize, that's worth keeping there. So I think we'll keep this. So we'll lead out on the Urborg. We'll play the Lotus Petal so we can hold up a crop rotation if something weird happens. And then we will do a good old Thoughtseize to our opponent. Now the Dragon's Rage Channeler, so they may be on Delver. They are on Delver. That was nice of them to help us out there. So they've got this Daze that I don't really want to have to play through. That's probably the scariest thing right now. So I reckon we're probably just getting rid of the Daze so that we can resolve our crop rotation if they wasteland us on the following turns. Not this turn, obviously. But our margin is going to be pretty tight because we only have one land, so I think getting rid of the Daze is right there. So they can wasteland us now, we can crop rotate. If they don't wasteland us, then they might wasteland us next turn, so we might have to crop rotate then. But if we can draw another land, we can float black, play the Hexmage, do the crop rotation, and get the guy in play. That should be before Dragon's Rage Channeler gets to do its thing. So we've got a Mishra's Bauble on the other side, and they're cracking it. What have you got for the rest of your turn? A wasteland, sure. They're going to snap it off straight away? They are. Okay, interesting. We'll crop rotate this land. I think we probably need a Yavimaya now. So if we get an Urborg and we draw Dark Depths, we can win the game. If we get Yavimaya, we can cast a Sylvan Scrying. It's a relatively tough call, if I'm being honest. It might just be a case of getting a Bayou here. Not ideal. Land is the most abundant thing in our deck. Now this one is a pretty awkward one to have. Unfortunately, we do have to play it now. So we are, because we need to cast the Sylvan Scrying next turn. So another wasteland here would be pretty lights out for us, to be honest. So this is just going to be the DRC. There it is. Sure. Back over to us. An Urborg. Okay. This one is fine. We can cast a Sylvan Scrying with mana to play around a Daze. We're going to get ourselves a Dark Depths. Next turn we can make our 20/20, which they have one card in their main deck that can answer, which is usually a Brazen Borrower. Now, they've got a decent amount of cards in their hand that we don't know, and they have a Ponder to fish for specific answers. Okay, a Misty Rainforest. Not a Wasteland. That's good news for us. They're cracking the Misty Rainforest. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So they could be deploying a Murktide Regent this turn. The fact they've had no interest in casting this Ponder is interesting to me. A Mercurial Spelldancer. Sure. Right, we'll play this one out first. Black and black. Play this out. And then in our opponent's upkeep, we will make a 20/20, because this way we can dodge a Wasteland. And we have the Not of This World. If they do draw the Brazen Borrower, it's a case of whether or not they can force it through. If they had a force, I imagine they'd fire it off on the Hexmage there. We could have kept a second mana up by playing the Dark Depths first, actually. We could have kept like Urborg and Bayou up to play for double Daze. Let me just take 2 little damage from this. Another Spelldancer. That doesn't stop them dying. And a Ponder. Okay, I'm not really sure how this is going to stop my opponent from losing the game this turn. Now, they're not going to have something like Submerge in their main deck. That would be a very bizarre main deck card. So, not sure. They do have another land drop though, so maybe they could play, but I'm not sure what 1 mana things they're going to have here. I guess the idea is they're going to use the Dragon's Rage Channeler as a blocker this turn, and then maybe try and race us with Spelldancers. That doesn't feel ideal though. So their Dragon's Rage Channeler has to block, so we may as well get rid of it this way. We can't block these anyway, and this means that they get less cards to filter through next turn. We have 2 Not of This Worlds kicking around, and we'll play out our Ghost Quarter as well. So our opponent deals us 4 damage this turn. How many lightning bolts do they have? Has to be a few. So they can play a Murktide Regent here, and then give us another thing to hit through, and maybe try and get us with bolts. The Sejiri Steppe being in play is a little bit awkward. We can't really do anything about that. I think we're just going to get bashed for 2 here. Sure. Because we've only got 1 counter on so far. So if they could bolt us to put counters on this, and then bolt us again, so that'd be 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Okay, so they're putting Ponder on top. That's all right. I think you want to play the Murktide first. I guess it doesn't really matter. The Murktide's going to get bigger and then die anyway, so it doesn't really matter, actually. Okay, so they're dazing their own guys so they can get their Mercurial guys online a bit better. Sure. Back over to us. The giant monster keeps on trucking. So this eats the Murktide. We have a choice now if we do this Thoughtseize or not. So 2 life is a real amount, but it's less than a lightning bolt. So I think it's worth doing. Okay. Just the Mystic Sanctuary. So we know they've got a Ponder on top. So we can shuffle away this Ponder now, or we can take out their land. We can give them a choice. Do you want that Ponder? You can float all you want. It's not going to make any difference. Sure. So they're choosing the Ponder over the mana. This also means that they can't do a Mystic Sanctuary line this turn. The thing I'm worried about is Lightning Bolt rather than anything else. So if these both activate and they Ponder next, that's fine for us. Not fine, but I'd rather they try and answer the Marit Lage than try to Lightning Bolt us out. So they're going to get to Ponder 3 times here. They shuffle their library. What about this Ponder? We know they can't answer what we've got going on here. So they've drawn a card. So shuffle with this one, and they're shuffling with the last one. What you got, opponent? You need 2 answers to Marit Lage, or 2 Lightning Bolts to our face. There's a Flow Strand. 2 Lightning Bolts to our face would be very sad. Dragon's Rage Channeler. Okay. This is getting a bit scary now because 1 Lightning Bolt is enough to kill us. And they can surveil away happily here. Yeah, we might lose this one. Another Ponder. So once these start running, they tend to just run away with the game a little bit. Maybe that 2 life we paid into that Thoughtseize is going to come back to bite us. Although we're still dead to a Lightning Bolt next turn anyway. We don't have a way of removing this Dragon's Rage Channeler. So we just have to kill it and then hope that our opponent can't kill us next turn. This is actually a good draw. Is it a good draw? No. No, because we can't block these because they're unblockable. Interesting. No, this doesn't do anything right now because of the unblockability on these. So what we need to do is not get Lightning Bolt with this turn. And this is only cheaper if it's defending our Marit Lage. We can't just have it cheaper because we have a Marit Lage. Well, this doesn't stop things that target us either, does it? So they're going to get a lot of spells this turn. So just need to find a Lightning Bolt here. So our odds are to lose this game, I think. A Ponder. So they get to cast a whole bunch of Ponders. So it's triple Ponder again. So they basically get to do triple Ponder every turn these are in play. Okay, they shuffle their library, that's good. We can beat Daze, we can beat 1 Force of Will. We can beat 1 Force of Will and Dazes. They did not shuffle their library, so we've lost this game. They are going to Lightning Bolt us to the face. If it's a bounce spell, then we win. But if it's a Lightning Bolt, we lose. And it's more likely to be a Lightning Bolt because they've got a load of those. So not very happy about this right now. Mystic Sanctuary. Putting Ponder on top. Okay, that makes me think my opponent might have a Ponder instead. Okay. Maybe they just kept a Ponder on top because Ponder's a look at more cards. So that's worth keeping on top for the purposes of... Okay. What have you got for us, opponent? A Lightning Bolt? Petty Theft. Okay, we can beat this one. So we'll let them resolve their oil counters first. And then we will counter this with a Not of This World. There's a Force of Will, so you can put some oil counters on your guys. Force of Will resolves. And then we'll counter it with this other one. And we get to win the game. That was a very tight one. Wowzers. Alright. Tough out there. So, how do we want to go about winning this game? So, if we have Leyline of the Void, they'll never have a flying blocker apart from Petty Theft guy. So that's interesting to me. The Steely Resolve is something that they basically can't really remove without Petty Theft anyway. So that's quite useful. Pithing Needle, Name of Wasteland is kind of essential here. I don't really like Ghost Quarter in this matchup, even though it did have a little bit of text there. So I don't think we need that. I don't know if this is a Boseiju matchup either. So we can get rid of those 2. So that buys us 2 Steely Resolves. Do we think we're going to be resolving these Not of This Worlds? I think we probably want to get rid of crop rotations in the face of all their counter magic. So that gives us another Steely Resolve to protect our guy. And it gives us some ley lines to mess with our opponent's things. The other option we can do is board in Abrupt Decays, because that deals with all of their things. So it's a case of, do we want to have... I don't know if we need Duresses. I think I would rather have 2 Abrupt Decays. I guess we can have the other ley line in. And then a decay like that. And then if we want another decay, we probably have to trim on things like Thoughtseize. Thoughtseize can be useful to resolve spells and stop our opponent's game plan. I think we're at risk of overboarding here is the issue. So we've got a bunch of protection. Is that too much protection for what our opponent's doing? Maybe it is. I think we can probably trim one of these and bring in a second decay. I don't think we need to go overboard. What does this hand do? This hand requires 1 land, and then we can go and get Dark Depths, and we're pretty close to Hexmage as well. I think this is a keeper. we start with a Leyline in play. We're a little bit exposed to Wasteland from the off. Okay, so this is only going to be a 1-1, but it will let them cycle through their deck. Our hand is not great, truth be told, but there's a lot of draws that turn this hand into a really good hand. Another Vampire Hexmage probably isn't one of those cards. Interesting. So we kind of have to play this out, and we have to play this out. I don't think we try and get the Sylvan Scrying going now. I think we see if they go to Wasteland our Bayou, then we can Abrupt Decay their Dragon's Race Channeler. Or we might have to leave our Petal. Yeah, did need to hit another land here. We got a few turns to do that, and most of our deck is land, so we should be alright. But there is a potential fail rate of what we're doing right now. We need to make sure our Sylvan Scrying resolves. Our opponent hasn't played a second land yet, but they might be just doing it in their second main phase to give us less information about what to do. A Delver. Okay, so that's not attacking our mana base right now, so that's fine. This one can be a flying blocker, and not of this world. Okay, so we've bricked again on lands. So we're in a bit of a tough spot here. So we could Abrupt Decay the Delver, or we could go and get a Dark Depths, and then any black source gives us the combo next turn. Or any... is that good enough, though? I don't think it is. Our opponent's only got 4 cards in hand. I think we need to be trying to get Sylvan Scrying here. I suspect this might get dazed. Sure. Okay, so we've got 2 for 1, getting rid of a Ponder. So the worst case scenario now is our opponent wastelands us. So Delver flips and they wasteland us. Okay, so they're brainstorming to guarantee the flip on the Delver. So we're in a bit of a spot, to be honest. So they revealed a brainstorm to the expressive iteration. They revealed. Okay, so they have the wasteland as well. So we are in worst case scenario. Not where we want to be. A Pithing Needle that we can't cast. Okay, so these guys aren't actually doing a lot of damage to us, but it's going to build up. They're going to have the Spell Dancer or the Iteration, sure. So this is 4. So this is a 4-turn clock right now, but any creature can change that clock. Just by adding 1 point of damage becomes relevant change. Surgical Extraction, targeting our Bayou. Okay, they're going to seal our sideboarding choices here. So the black-green version of Depths I'm playing is usually better against Delver because you have the ability to just play a fetch land on turn 1, which is a huge upgrade from playing a thing that has to be wastelanded. Yikes, this is not a great card to have in play right now, but here we are. So if we can untap, we can play a Pithing Needle on Wasteland, then we need to find an Urborg and a Dark Depths in our next couple of draws, really. Spell Dancer, sure. The clock is quite swift right now. This puts us to 7. And we'll play this one out, I guess. Going through the motions a bit here. Sure, so this is 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So they are doing this to put a counter on Mercurial Spell Dancer more than anything. I don't think they particularly care about the Pithing Needle. It's our opponent's turn, and if they've got a Lightning Bolt, we die. Okay. So they're putting a second count on the Spell Dancer, and then they get to attack with the Spell Dancer this turn, and possibly double a Ponder, or a Lightning Bolt if they feel like overkilling us. Plenty of options for our opponent. They're going to use the trigger. They're not going to use the trigger. Okay. So what can we do? We can Verdant Catacombs and then cast nothing. Sure. We did not have a great time that time. Let's go back to sideboarding. So on the play, I actually would like some Abrupt Decays instead of the Leylines. I think that is a better shout here. The Not of This World, probably okay there. There's an argument for not having Steely Resolves and having Leylines instead. There's an argument for bringing in the Boseiju just to make sure we have more mana sources against the Wasteland deck. Maybe we should be doing that. Maybe we're trimming a Steely Resolve there. They don't have a lot of answers for us. Maybe we don't even need all the Steely Resolves at all. Maybe we can just do a Leyline and rely on our Not of This Worlds. Sure. Let's try this. So we're on the play. What does this hand do? We have a basic. We just need the other half of our combo. So what have we got? We've got 4 Hexmage, 4 Thespian Stage, and 4 Sylvan Scrying. So we have 12 draws in 53 cards. So that's just under 1 in 4 chance of each draw. Just over 1 in 4 chance. Under 1 in 4 chance of drawing, actually. So is this good enough? It's a slow one. We do have a basic to operate on, though, which is something I'm quite fond of. I think we can probably do better than this, though. I think we should mulligan. Okay, this one is an interesting one. We need to draw 1 more mana source or an Urborg. That seems a-okay to me. So we're probably keeping this, and we bottom either the Thoughtseizes or the Vampire Hexmage. It's one of the two, I think. Because we want to keep the mana to put into a Thespian stage if that's the way we're going to win the game. So we have 1, 2, we draw another land, and we have the Thespian stage, and we have the Spirit Guide, that's enough. Okay, so would we rather have a Thoughtseize available, or would we rather have the Vampire Hexmage available? I guess we don't know until the Pithing Needle resolves what's going to be best. I think we keep these though. I think it's probably the Hexmage that goes because that's the hardest one for us to cast realistically at this point. So start with the Leyline play, which should hopefully slow down our opponent enough that we get to do our thing. Let's play this out. We'll play out Pithing Needle. Force of Negation, pitching Spelldancer. Okay. So we could get wastelanded here, which would be difficult. Yeah, okay. Are they just snapping this off straight away? The fact they're not snapping off straight away makes me think that maybe they need this to produce mana to cast like a turn 2 Spelldancer. Okay, they've gone for this. So things are going to get more difficult for us now. An Urborg. Alright. Let's Thoughtseize our opponent and see what they're working with. It's just a grip full of wastelands. Oh, wow. Our opponent shouldn't have kept this hand. Wowzers, trousers. Okay. So, Hexmage wins us the game. Thespian Stage wins us the game. Oh, they drew a threat off the top. It's not a great threat right now, but... A Sejiri Steppe. Would we rather have the Sejiri Steppe in play or the Dark Depths? If we have the Dark Depths in play, we're exposed to a wasteland. If we have the Sejiri Steppe in play, it doesn't really make a difference. If we have the Dark Depths in play, it means we can draw a Thespian Stage and kill our opponent next turn. But we're not really under a huge amount of pressure. Do we even want the Sejiri Steppe in play? I think we do, just so it's easier for us to cast spells. Alright. Let's see if we can beat our opponent's bad keep. Now, if they do have spells, then they get to fix their draws quite nicely. Sylvan Scrying. Okay, so we exile this, and we tap this to cast our Sylvan Scrying. We go and get ourselves a Thespian Stage, and we hang our Thespian Stage out there. Next turn, we play our Dark Depths and make a 20/20. Now, the way this can go wrong is Brazen Borrower is pretty good. Another Wasteland from opponent. Okay, this is a pretty good draw. Are they going to Surveil? Okay, they surveilled the Meltdown away. Why do people bring a Meltdown against Depths? I will never know. I see it quite often as well. Okay, Flooded Strands. That's not a Wasteland. So we get to make a 20/20 on our opponent's upkeep to dodge Wasteland. Yavimaya, Cradle of Grace. So play this out. We'll do this now to dodge Wasteland. So Brazen Borrower is the card they're looking for here. Considering their hand was pretty bad. Okay, they didn't have it. So we got the match there. Normally I quite like this against Delver. We had a bit of a tough time, but our opponent definitely helped us out with that keep. I think you can't just keep Wasteland and other lands and expect to get there. But yeah, so we are 3-1 now after 4 rounds. So doing all right. I'll see you in the next round. Okay, we're into round 5. This is our opening hand. We make a turn 2 Dark Depths token. Yeah, this seems pretty great to me. I will say Underground Sea. Our opponent's up to no good. That's what Underground Sea means. A Delver of Secrets. Okay. Interesting. Could be some sort of Grixis Delver build. There's a lot of options that our opponent could be trying to get us. So we'll play out our Lotus Petal for the purposes of if we need to resolve a Daze or something. And we'll play a Pithing Needle. We can also hold up the crop rotation here if we need to. So our Pithing Needle resolve, we'll name Wasteland and pass the turn. Because our opponent played a Delver, I'm expecting our opponent to be a relatively fair tempo-ish deck rather than some sort of combo deck that just happens to have some Delvers in, because that'd be very peculiar. A Daze, sure. That's a nice thing to know to have to play around. There is a Ponder. So our opponent probably knows what's up here. Urborg into Pithing Needle is a very limited amount of decks that play that. If it was Yavimaya, maybe we could represent Cloudpost. But the Lotus Petal is also a bit of a giveaway. So we have a choice now. We can play around this Daze and give up our Lotus Petal this turn. Or we can just play out our... we can play this out and go for the Hexmage here. If they Daze, we can pay with the Petal. Or we can hold up the Petal for crop rotation later. Considering the speed of our opponent's clock right now, I'd be tempted to allow this Daze to resolve. And just put our Hexmage in the bin. And then get the Hexmage next turn. Because we also have Thespian Stage. So we can do the combo without using the stack. For spells anyway. Okay. They let us have it. Interesting. This is interesting. So because our opponent's an unorthodox deck, I'm not entirely sure if I'm supposed to be using our Hexmage right now or not. So what I might do here is do an end of turn Dark Depths rather than... Okay, they want to lightning bolt our Hexmage. Interesting. Interesting. Very interesting. Because this actually makes things a little bit difficult if you want to try and crop rotate into things. So this does suggest that our opponent has something here. Possibly some kind of edict effect. Like a Shoulder's Edict or a Sudden Edict. If it's a Sudden Edict, there's nothing we can really do about this. The Shoulder's Edict, there's not much we can do about it either right now. Expressive Iteration. Okay. They just didn't have an answer and they were just bolting the guy to force us into a play. That's interesting. I have to imagine they have Wastelands in their deck because they're a Delver deck with Dazes in. So I would have thought they would have been more inclined to let the... okay, so we know they've got a Daze, so we got to be careful with our crop rotation here. A Thoughtseize. So we can play out our Thespian stage first. And then I think we can Thoughtseize our opponent. Do we care about any of these cards? Not particularly. I think we'll take the Ponder here. We'll go to attacks. We will swallow up the Insectile Aberration. I'm just trying to work out why our opponent has black mana in their deck. So we can hold up crop rotation. I think they're more likely to have Brazen Borrow within an Edict. So I'm going to hold up the crop rotation to protect from that. We don't have anything like a... what's it called? Dryad Arbor or something to go and fetch to protect us from those anyway. Alright, an Expressive Iteration was the card they drew. So we can play crop rotation around a Daze and get a Sejiri Steppe if they find something. Okay, they just scooped it up. So, our opponent appears to be Grixis making tokens guys. So, not entirely sure what we need to be bringing in here. I suspect our opponent, the way they're going to remove our creature might be more towards the edicts because we saw the black mana. So that's something we need to think about. Do they have Wastelands? If they're a Delver deck with Daze, I would be running Wastelands. So I have to imagine there's Wastelands in there, but they are trying to cast Expressive Iteration and that Third Path Iconoclast and something with black mana. That something might just be something like a Baleful Strix. I don't think our opponent's 3-colour deck is going to mess with our mana base outside of Wastelands either. So, this gives us some choices. Things like Abrupt Decay, Steely Resolve, and Duress are what I'm interested in. I don't think one crop rotation is against our opponent who's clearly going to be playing a lot of counterspells. So I think that buys us probably some decays and a Duress. And then we have to decide if we want these things in there or not. So I think we need the Needles, but I don't know if they're going to be a full complement of Wastelands in their deck. I don't know if we're going to need the Boseiju, but again, if they're a Wasteland deck, we want to make sure we have a decent number of lands there. I don't think the Ghost Court was actually going to be that relevant. I would probably rather have a Duress or a Decay here. I think probably... it's tough, actually. We could always just board in one Steely Resolve here. So it looks like they're going to spam a load of guys and just have a lot of value plays. I think it's probably the Duress, just in case they are playing Edicts. We'll try it like this and see how we go. We can reappraise the situation. We work out a bit more of our opponent's deck construction. This hand does not produce a Dark Depths. We cannot keep this hand. Pretty much always have to find a hand that can make a Dark Depths in some way, shape or form. Like, you can find the other bits, but a Dark Depths is important. So we've got basics to operate on. We've got the Duress, Abrupt Decay. We're looking for 12 cards to find our Dark Depths. I think we can keep this, and we probably want to bottom... It's either the Boseiju or the Verdant Catacombs. I think for the purposes of operating under basics, and we already have the Decay, I'm going to get rid of this Boseiju. So we can start out turn 1 Swamp, turn 2 Forest. So we can Swamp, Thoughtseize, and then Forest, Abrupt Decay. But we'll see what our opponent leads out on. Is it a Delver? It's a Dragon's Rage Channeler, as expected to be in our opponent's deck. Okay, so we have a turn 3 here. So we're going to crack this Verdant Catacombs, get ourselves a Swamp. We're going to cast the Thoughtseize first rather than the Duress. Because if our opponent has another threat, we'd like to nab that. So they can't keep threatening us. So one of these cards interacts with what we're doing, the rest of it doesn't. So we'll take the one card that does interact. So next turn we can Abrupt Decay our opponent's Dragon's Rage Channeler, which will also be their only flying blocker. And we'll slow down the clock. And then the turn after, we can Dark Depths. This means that this has to get a Bayou rather than a... it has to get a Bayou rather than a... okay, so the third part... Yes, we can't get a Forest, we have to get a Bayou. Which means we're a little bit exposed to our opponent's Wastelands and things. But we can always just take the damage off of this first. So there's the Mistress Bauble. I'm not particularly threatened by anything our opponent is doing right now. So we just take the 1. That's fine. Opponent's got 2 cards in hand. One of them is this Lightning Bolt, which isn't going to help them out very much. They are drawing a card with their Bauble, though. So now we have a Thespian stage as well. So deploy this with the intent of cracking it end of turn. Or if they play a land before they go to attacks, then we can crack it and kill their Dragon's Rage Channeler. So I'm now suspecting that the reason our opponent's playing black is a splash to cast Snuff Out for the initiative match. More or less where I'm landing on it at the moment from what I've seen. Surgical Extraction on a Thoughtseize. Sure, so they're going to see what our hand is, and that's fine. We don't really want to draw a Thoughtseize here anyway, so... I suspect part of this is just so our opponent gets the Surveil trigger, as well as the ability to look at our hand. So our opponent's got one card that they've kept on top of their library. Okay, so that's the Thoughtseize in our graveyard, which is interesting. So we have a little bit of ways to navigate this game, because a Wasteland plus the Lightning Bolt means we can't just hold up Hexmage and Depths. So we might have to duress away the Lightning Bolt first before we deploy our Hexmage and our Depths. And then we can threaten both the Thespian stage combo. Okay, they just had another one of those. They're just making some guys. Don't really care about that. They left the one card on top of their library. They're giving us some good draws, at least, by getting rid of these cards we don't really want to see. What is our opponent's one card? So if our opponent doesn't have a Wasteland, I think we're fine. We take 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 here. But our opponent kept a card on top, so I have to imagine it's a good card. Now, if it's a cantrip, that would make sense. It's a Delver. Okay. Interesting. So at end of turn, we sacrifice this. We know our opponent's only got a Lightning Bolt in hand. So this gets a Bayou. We Abrupt Decay this guy. And we block this as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we're going to have to duress this turn. So we're looking for a Lotus Petal? A Dark Depths. Okay, so we can make a blocker for here. We take 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we need to duress this away. But then how much damage well, we can't duress this away because they're just going to bolt us in response, right? So if we play this Depths out and then we play this Hexmage out, I think our opponent has us here, actually. Maybe we should have done a little bit more maths a bit early on, shouldn't I? So I could take out the thing and save ourselves 3 damage. So we get Lightning Bolted. This gives them another token. So we are dead at this point. I just want to see if we get to see another card from our opponent in case it helps us for the third game, because we're not going to go to time this round. We block this. We take 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Not ideal. Yeah, if we'd have blown this up with our Abrupt Decay, I think we win. Or, well, the problem is the Delver can flip. And it looks like it would have flipped. Yeah. And then they can block. And then we're kind of stuck a little bit. All right. I don't really know what they're brainstorming for here, but if they want to show us more cards to help us sideboard better, then please do so, opponent. So they just have to turn all their guys sideways here. So block here, take 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, so we're done. All right. So, game 3. Do I want to do anything differently? Interesting. I think another Abrupt Decay might be pretty handy here. And I'm going to trim on a Pithing Needle because I don't believe we saw any Wastelands in that game either. Sure. We'll run it like this. So we're on the play, which is where we want to be. What does this hand do? We can Sylvan Scrying provided it resolves. And so if we Scrying on turn 1 and then play this, then turn 2 we play the Depth, and turn 3 we go off. So this is quite a slow one, and it's quite susceptible to potential things our opponent can do with our mana base. So I think we can do a little bit better than this one. Although the Abrupt Decay, we kind of need to resolve a Sylvan Scrying for this hand to work. We don't really have any other way of forcing things through. I think we can do better. This is a very similar hand, but we have multiple bites at the cherry because we have 2 Sylvan Scrying. We don't have any green mana is the problem. So we kind of be doing Sylvan Scrying for what exactly? It's tough. It's a tough choice, this one. I think we should go and mulligan. Okay, this is the hand I like best from all the ones we've seen, so we'll keep this one. Obviously keeping our Depths, keeping our Scryings. I don't think this is a game where we're going to need this, and we can probably do away with... We can operate on basics here. So I think we probably keep the 2 basics and the Abrupt Decay, and we throw this back. So we can begin the game with a basic, and then we can follow up with another basic and Abrupt Decay, or Sylvan Scrying, depending on what the board's looking like at the time. We're going to need to find a little bit more gas here, but we have the combo sewn up here. We have 2 lands, a Dark Depths, and a Thespian stage. A Polluted Delta, and no play from our opponent. That's good. I don't think our opponent has Stifle. We haven't seen it yet. Not of this world. Okay, so that's a piece of the puzzle. So let's crack one of these now. Let's see what happens. Is our opponent going to crack in response? No. So we can get a Swamp and a Forest, or we can get 2. We can get a Swamp and a Bayou, or we can get a Forest and a Bayou. No, it has to be a swamp and a Bayou if we want to do that plan. Or we could have just got double Bayou. I think we will get the Bayou here just to make it so that we can draw a Hexmage. So a green and a black. Let's see if they've got the Daze or a Force of Will. I suspect they have some interaction. Force of Will, pitching Expressive Iteration, sure. But again, we have the hardest part of our deck to find, which is the Dark Depths. We have Thespian Stages, we have Sylvan Scryings, we have Vampire Hexmages. So we have a lot of ways of turning our Dark Depths into a Merit Lineage token. Okay, no Wasteland, that's good news. Third Path Iconoclast. So this is one of the threats. They got a Bauble. They do have a Bauble, sure. So we can blow this up now to save ourselves the damage. Well, I say now, on our next turn. And they can't interact with that. Now, they can cast a spell targeting Abrupt Decay just to get an additional 1/1. But I think we blow this up on our turn as well. We have a Knot of this World ready for when we do get to make it 2020. And we can slow our opponent's clock down by blowing up their Iconoclast. So we're in an okay spot, but we need to draw something. A Thoughtseize. Would I rather Thoughtseize or Abrupt Decay here? I think I would rather Abrupt Decay. So I'm just going to snap this off right away. This is the thing that presents the increasing clock that we can get rid of here. We could play out our Dark Depths, so that, and we haven't seen a Wasteland from our opponent. But if they do have Wastelands in their deck, and they have a Surgical, they can Wasteland Surgical this and we lose the game. All in case we draw a Thespian stage. And I think we can just wait another turn to play around that just in case. Because the clock our opponent has is very slow. If they still had the Iconoclast, we might have to just play the Dark Depths there. But I think we're in an okay situation to just let it ride for now. So ideally you can draw a Thespian stage next turn, and then we can Thoughtseize our opponent, take out the thing that maybe deals with our token, and then hopefully have the Knot of this World a little bit of extra backup. Expressive Iteration, that's not adding to the board, so I don't mind that. It is a good card and it is going to let them see more potential options of messing with us. A Ponder, okay, so they're just going to cast a Ponder. What does our opponent have for us? They did not shuffle the library. Not a fan of that. We do get to Thoughtseize in this turn, unless something weird happens with our hand. A Verdant Catacombs. So this is one we can play out. So now we'll Thoughtseize our opponent and see what they're working with. So how do I feel about any of these cards? So the Force of Will stops us from having a bunch of draws that win us the game here. The Third Path Iconoclast represents a win condition. So it's a case of, do I want to buy us turns with the Third Path but then have to try and get through the Force of Will? Or the other way around? This is tough. I think we're supposed to take out the threat here because we can just draw a Thespian stage here. And we do have a bunch more discard in our deck. So picking away that Force of Will might not be the most difficult thing. There's also something they can't put back on top of the Mystic Sanctuary, which is important. I don't want to crack this Verdant Catacombs until I have to, because the 1 point of damage might be relevant when they are attacking with a 1/1. It could be a whole turn of the game. And the thinning you get from it is so marginal, it's not worth it, really. Okay, so this is going to put an Expressive Iteration on top of our opponent's library, so the next turn they can do some more card drawing. They could Ponder into it now. Okay, they drew another Third Path. Okay, so if they'd have been able to deploy 2 of these this turn, that would have been real bad for us. In fact, they found another one, not great. So if we can draw Thespian stage, we win the game. I'm pretty sure. We don't get to Knot of this World their Force of Will. We don't get to Knot of this World what removal spell they have because of the Force of Will, if they find a blue card. But at the moment, they just have Lightning Bolt and Force of Will. They did not shuffle their library. Another bad sign for us. Okay, here we go. It's not a Thespian stage. Do I want to play this Urborg? I think we have to play out the Dark Depths now. We haven't seen any Wastelands, and this means the Thespian stage is live for winning us the game now. So that's our plan. We're probably going to Lightning Bolt our face. Yeah, just to make another guy, increase their clock. So we've got, what, 5 damage coming in here? Expressive Iteration. Sure. We knew this was on top. So this is 5 this turn and then 6 next turn. So we've got 1 more turn to find our business spell. And also hope that it's going to be enough. I think it should be okay if we find it. I think this 1 point of life that we can save is going to be relevant though. Yes, okay. Very much so. So this is swing for 5. That puts us to 6. So we can block this next turn, take 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I think we're just dead actually, which is a pity. We can play a 2-1. Sorry, a 2-2. I could Force of Will this just to make another threat, because that gives them lethal, because I have 1 card in hand which can't be enough to turn this into a 20/20, even if it was a crop rotation. A Brainstorm, sure. So this is another creature that I can't block. Yeah. I think we just got busted. Our draws were pretty poor. We drew mainly land, and our opponent drew the thing that we thought was out their hand. Sometimes it's going to happen, and that's Magic the Gathering. We had quite a few turns to draw the thing that just wins us the game, and we didn't draw it. So we just need to let our opponent go through the motions. They might not be able to flip their Delver if they get very unlucky. And then we can take 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, they're just going to force a will this. And we are done here. Sure. So a bit of a disappointing loss, that one, to be honest. I think we were odds on to win that game for most of it. We just got a little bit unfortunate with their drawing into their third path Iconoclast immediately after we got rid of it. The choice of hitting that with a Thought Force of Will never really came up. But there we go. So yeah, we're a long way away from, if we see the cards that are coming up, we're a long way away from winning that game. It's just a case of variance. Our opponent is a blue deck, so they get to manipulate variance more than we do. We did mulligan quite hard in that matchup as well. I'd normally be pretty happy to play against this though. But sometimes you end up on the wrong side of variance, but it doesn't matter. We are now 5 rounds into the tournament. We are 3-2, so if we win out, we can probably do all right. See you in the next round. All right, we're on the draw. Our opening hand doesn't do anything, so we need to mulligan. This hand is an interesting one. I think it's fine against non-blue decks, but it's going to be a bit tricky against blue decks to get this going. We kind of need another land. I think it's just about... We can always just play a turn 2 Dark Depths off of our 2 Spirit Guides and hope that works. So I think this is a keep though. So we have to put one of these cards away. It's probably just going to be the Duress here. Once upon a time from our opponent. So this suggests to me not a blue deck. This could be Elves of either the combo variety or the Newton Elves, or it could be the initiative deck that sometimes Anger. Okay, this is going to be Madness. How bad is this going to be for us? So the Anger is quite a powerful one because this gives them the haste. So there's a lot of stuff going on the stack right now. If we can find a green source, we can sail through the air with our Merit token in a couple of turns. Okay, so we're taking up 4, 5, 6, 7 damage this turn. We take 7 damage the next turn, and then we block this and take 3 and die, maybe? So, going to be tough, this one. I think we'll play out our Thespian stage and pass the turn. If we have to crop rotate into a Bojuka Bog to not die, then I guess we have to do that. But I'm hoping that we can just make a Merit on the next turn and block the hollow one and survive. So we're going to take 4, 5, how much taken here? 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So that's going to put us to 3. So our turn 2, 2020 might not be enough here. So we can play this, we block this, we take 1, 2, 3. I don't think we can win this one. I think we should just concede. All right. So if our opponent doesn't have Anger, then we win that game easily. But they did, so a bit awkward for us. So we have some options here. We have some removal spells. We have some Graveyard Hate. So I think Graveyard Hate now... Graveyard Hate doesn't stop Madness, but it stops Anger, which buys us time, which I think is something we want. The Pithing Needle on Putrid Imp doesn't feel very exciting to me. So I think we can probably swap these out. And that's pretty clean. It's a case of, do we want these Abrupt Decays? Abrupt Decay doesn't necessarily help a lot of things we want, but we can probably do with swapping Duresses for Abrupt Decays. How much do we need Not of This World? I honestly don't know. We could probably have one of those instead of a Not. We probably have 1 Decay instead of Not of This World. Or we can have Pithing Needles to like Pithing Needle things like the Root Wallers. That doesn't feel very strong though. I think we'll just have another Decay. This blows up the... Just have another one, I think. This blows up the guy that draws and discards, whose name I'm bricking on right now, but the Madness guy that's basically the thing that makes the deck, one of the things that makes the deck good. So what does this hand do? This hand doesn't make a 20-20, so I think we have to mulligan this one. The Leyline stops Vengevine and it stops the thing. So this would require us to draw something to make a Dark Depths. So if we got lucky, this hand would win us a game, but I don't know if we can count on being lucky. So how many draws are we looking at? 4 crop rotation, 4 Dark Depths, 4 Sejiri Steppes. 4 Sylvan Scrying. So that's 12 draws in 53 cards. I think we can do better. This is a turn 3. Oh wait, this is a turn 2, right? Because we have 1 mana from here and 1 mana from here. So turn 2 seems good. We have to get rid of 2 cards though. Oh wait, no, it won't be a turn 2, will it? So we get rid of the Sylvan Scrying and probably the Spirit Guide. Although the Spirit Guide is our only way of casting this Abrupt Decay. which means you probably get rid of the Abrupt Decay. Keep a green source. So we start with this in play. This isn't great in this matchup. It stops Vengevines and it stops Anger, which is all we're trying to make it do. So we're going to play out our Thespian stage. This way, if we draw a second Elvish Spirit Guide or Lotus Petal, we can make a turn 2 2020, which will beat what our opponent does. The Madness deck has not really seen a lot of play lately. Burning Inquiry. Okay. We would have drawn the Lotus Petal. Anjay's Ravager. That's the guy that I was thinking of. So we need to find either another mana source or another land, and we can make a turn 3 2020. So the Vengevine is out and an Anger is out, so that's pretty good for us. They've just got these pretty medium looking guys. Now this guy is not medium. This guy draws a lot of cards. So over to us. An Urborg. Okay, so this is one of the ones we want. I think we play out the Dark Depths this turn, and then next turn we can combo off. And our opponent won't be able to block it. They've got no cards in hand right now. I think we are more or less okay. We haven't taken any damage yet, so this is going to give them some useful ability to dig into their deck. So they get to see what they're drawing before they put mana into the Root Waller. We can take this. Okay, so we can also protect our Marit Lage now because we can use our Spirit Guide on the crop rotation. So we should have this game won. The only thing I think our opponent can have is an Edict, perhaps. I think because we have the ability to protect our guy, we're just going to make it now and block the Anjay's Ravager. Make sure we select the right one. So we can sacrifice this for a Sejiri Steppe if they have anything that can interact with us. All right, Vengevines, Street Wraith, a Burning Inquiry. Interesting. If true, I think this is fine. Okay, yeah, we still get to do our thing if we need to. Sure. So that's usually how this game goes. So, on the draw, does it change anything? I don't really think so. I think we just have the removal for the guy. I don't think Pithing Needles for Root Wallers and stuff is the way to go, to be honest. I think we just race them. Do we need Ghost Quarters and Boseijus? Or would we rather have... I think we just want the lands, to be honest. We want to be able to have a critical mass of lands because we are keeping our crop rotations in. So I think we are fine with this. This hand's pretty good. This is a turn... So I want to make this... If I draw a Lotus Petal, this can be a turn 2. I think we'll keep this one. An Arab Mesa, sure. Now Badlands. Burning Inquiry can obviously mess up our hand, so I'm much more incentivized to keep a 7-card hand. A Putrid Imp, sure. You got anything to go with it, or are you going to do it on my turn? A Vengevine. Okay, so we might be getting hit by a Vengevine this turn. And then there's the free hollow one. There's no Anger in the graveyard as of yet, though. If there's an Anger in the graveyard, we lose this game, I think. Ooh, we might still lose this game. That's a lot of power. Okay, so this comes in for 4. It's going to be tough. I believe we can do this one. So we go Thespian stage, Sylvan Scrying, 4 Dark Depths. And next turn, if we draw a Lotus Petal or a Sylvan's or an Elvish Spirit Guide, we can make the guy. If we don't, we have to buy ourselves one more turn, which might be difficult to do with all this pressure. 4, 8, 12, 13. I don't think we get another turn here. It's going to be a Faithless Looting. Sure, they're just trying to put an Anger in their graveyard or some more stuff, really. A Street Wraith. That's not a big deal. We are very much in the we have to draw the thing now. Now we can cruise through a Putrid Imp, so that'll be fine. But even if we draw the thing, I think we lose now, right? So yeah, we just dead to everything they got on board here. Yikes! Sure, we got beaten by Madness. Wasn't expecting to play against Madness today. They kind of do it in some ways. They're doing a similar thing to us, where they just kind of throw their thing out and say, "Is it good enough?" And they made 13 power on turn 1, which is 13 power on turn 1, which is in the very high percentages of the very top percentiles of what the Madness deck can do. And then game 1, they had the big Anger turn on the first turn. So yeah, we just kind of got a bit nut drawn by the old Madness deck. I'm surprised to see a Madness deck doing this well. I think they were 4-1 going into this round, so fair play to them. It's not a deck that gets a lot of love because it's relatively easy to beat for a lot of decks, but I guess just throwing your hand out and hoping it's good enough is probably all right in the meta where initiative has kind of ruined it a little bit. So yeah, I guess we are 3-3 now, which is a very poor record, to be honest, but we definitely can't top 8 at all now, but we can play for a little bit more, get a bit more coverage on the old deck for you, test out some of the changes we made on the deck, and see how we go. But not a good run, but we had a good run last week, so we can't complain. I'll see you in the next round. Here we are in round 7, and we are on the play. Our hand gives us a turn 2 Hexmage into Depths with a Thoughtseize on turn 1 if we crop rotate. That seems fine to me. Again, we can come unstuck if our crop rotation gets counterspelled. Do this. So we're going to sacrifice this and get an Urborg to Thoughtseize our opponent. Our opponent can Force of Will this. They did not Force of Will it. Excellent for us. So now we will Thoughtseize our opponent and see what they're working with. A wasteland would be a little bit awkward for us. But because we have a crop rotation, any green source means that we can get back into this situation again, and we do have the protection for our Hexmage. Okay, so this looks like the similar deck that we played against earlier. So I think we can take the Delver here. That's the only thing that flies here. And we have a turn 2. Interesting to see this deck again. Maybe this is the new direction. Some people going Spell Dancer, some people going Third Path. So there's a polluted Delta that we knew about. So did our opponent draw a Daze this turn? Let's find out, I guess. Let's try the Hexmage. Now they can try and brainstorm into interaction here. Okay, so cracking the Delta. I'm suspecting they're going to brainstorm trying to look for Force of Will or Daze. If they Daze this, we only need one land that produces green mana, and then we can crop rotate for the Thespian stage and combo. So let's see. And obviously as the game goes on, our opponent gets to shape their hand. It gets less likely that our ability to make a 20/20 will be enough. So we need to try and push things a little bit here. They have a Daze, sure. So next turn, if we draw a green source, we can crop rotate into the answer, the Thespian stage and carry on. Making our guide. Or we could just draw a Thespian stage now, would also be fine. We drew an Elvish Spirit Guide. This one still does it at instant speed because we float black, and then we use this to crop rotate this into a Thespian stage and use the floating mana to target our Dark Depths. So we can do this in our opponent's end step, or we can do it in their upkeep. We can also do it in response to a card that they cast. Just a Lightning Bolt to our face, sure. An island. A Murktide Regent. So we need 3 of the 4 cards in our opponent's hand, I believe. We'll go black, black. Exile this for green. Crop rotate away this Urborg. If they have a Daze, we play around it a little bit. We'll keep the one with no counters on, obviously. And here comes our 20/20. Okay, we've got some protection for our thing. Their Murktide has to go under the bus here. They're probably going to be Expressive Iteration on their next turn. Under the bus goes the Murktide. They didn't have any counter spell for what we just did, so I have to imagine that we're probably safe with our double Knot of this world. I don't think they can deploy a fly here either. Sure, so we got that win there. So it's this deck again, an interesting one. So I like Abrupt Decays. I quite like Duresses. I think Steely Resolve has some text on it. I don't think we want to be going into Force of Vigor type stuff. So crop rotation is awkward in the face of what our opponent's doing. And if this is like the other one, they don't have wastelands. Now, we can't be certain about that. But if we can board down a couple of needles to fit in Duresses. And because we have the basic land package, we might be able to play around that anyway. I think this is probably about where we want to be. And then we can reappraise it in game 3 if there is one. If we see wastelands or if we see unusual tech. And also we can change our makeup a little bit so we have some crop rotations in. So this hand does find a Dark Depths, but it needs to find another thing as well. I think we can do better. This is not better. This doesn't seem great either. We're trying to draw one of our tutors or our Dark Depths here. Do we want to go to 4 cards? I think we'll keep this on the play. I'm not happy about it though. So we want to keep some lands and hand disruption, I think. So we can put back the Knot of this world and probably put back the Boseiju. And so done. So we're going to be trying to pick apart our opponent's hand and then trying to find a way of producing a 20/20 either by drawing a Dark Depths or drawing the Sylvan Scrying. It only gives us 8 cards in our deck that finds it for us though, so I'm not massively confident with where we are right now. Sure, a DRC from our opponent. And a Bauble. Imagine they're just going to fire off straight away. Get their Surveilling on to try and build this into a 3-power flyer as quickly as they possibly can. Alright, over to us. Not of this world. Not a great one. We're going to save the Bayou because we'd ideally like to keep that back in case we need to cast a green spell. So we're going to try and pick apart our opponent's hand. So we'll take the threat because that buys us the most amount of time. It does put a creature in their graveyard though. And they have a brainstorm, so they might be able to put the Dragon's Rage Channeler into 3 power mode. But because we don't really offer much in the way of defense in our deck, it means that we kind of need to take out the threat if there's nothing here that's affecting us. Like we could take a brainstorm, that's fine. Okay, so they're going into a 3/3. I think they should brainstorm before they play their Underground Sea though, because they might find something better like another threat or something, or a fetch lands they can clean up with the brainstorm. So I'm not a big fan of that play from our opponents. Sure, so they're going to get to Mishra's Bauble here. And I'm going to have a look at what we're doing. And it's back over to us. Be a good time to draw something useful. So we can play out our Bayou here. And we can blow up this Dragon's Rage Channeler now, which gives them less chances of being able to dig for extra cards with their expressive iterations and stuff. So this will buy us a little bit of time. We're just trying to draw into one of our 8 cards that win us the game. Obviously the Dark Depths wins us the game quicker than the Sylvan Scrying does, because that's the thing we have to resolve. But we're going to sandbag this Duress for the turn we want to cast it, potentially, depending on how our draw pans out. Okay, so we managed to snag that guy without any issue, which was pretty much expected because that's what Abrupt Decay does. Now it's our opponent's turn. We're going to see an expressive iteration here, but again, why did they do this after they played a land drop? If they play a third path Iconoclast and a spell, that would make more sense. But an expressive iteration when you've already played a land feels a bit of a weird one. Okay, so doing something else for 3 mana here. Okay, they're just playing a Murktide. Sure. So this is a 6/6. This is a 3-turn clock, but a Lightning Bolt changes that. Can we draw the thing? A Pithing Needle. Not that exciting. I think this turn we're going to dress our opponent, see what they're working with. We know they've got 2 EIs in hand. So we take one of them. A Force of Will. I think we probably have to take the Force of Will here. And then we're into Pithing Needle territory. I don't think our opponent has Wastelands. Didn't see them against the other deck that was the same as this, and we haven't seen them now. So we're probably going to board these out for the last game, if we don't draw a Dark Depths in the next turn or 2. We might get 2 draw steps, we might only get 1. Expressive Iteration has a real good way of changing the maths of things, because they can find threats, they can find bolts, all sorts. So the reason we take the Force of Will there is so that we can resolve something like a Sylvan Scrying to give us a chance to make the 2020 next turn, or resolve our Hexmage, etc, etc. So we need to have a way of sticking our spell so that we can field the Marit Lage. One of the expressive iterations we know about. This time they haven't played a land yet. So, well, they didn't play one last turn either. But so they can play a land from this. So more likely to get the full value out of the iteration. Our opponent took a long time with that spell. Not sure if that's a good thing or a bad thing for us, but they've got a Dragon's Rage Channeler off of it. So we're going to take 6 and go to 9. So they've got 9 power in play for next turn. So we have to make our guy this turn or lose the game. Understood. Ghost Quarter, that's not it. I think we can concede the game here and go to game 3. So I'm going to take out these Pithing Needles now because I don't think our opponent has Wastelands in their deck. So we can swap these out in favour of some crop rotations to make our combo slightly more reliable. On the play, I think we're going to take another crop rotation as well. We have all these Thoughtseize and stuff to punch a hole through. Do we want another one over one of these Abrupt Decays? I think so. I think we just need to make our combo as reliable as possible. I think we can probably get rid of the Ghost Quarter to get back a 3rd Abrupt Decay. And that's how we're sideboarding. Crop rotation not great against counterspell decks. We don't have a way of actually getting our Marit Lage here, unfortunately, so we need to mulligan this one. Again, this one doesn't actually produce a Marit Lage, so we need to go again. It also doesn't have either half of the combo. So we're back to mulliganing deeper. What did this do? This doesn't do it. We have to mulligan to 4 cards. It's a good 4 cards. So I think we have to keep this. We throw back one of the Dark Depths. Probably have to throw back a Knot of this World. We need to keep the crop rotation in case we find a green source that can unlock our combo. We're in a bad spot, is how I would describe things right now. We have to play a Bojuka Bog on turn 1. Never where you want to be. But sometimes you're going to have to mulligan a lot and you're going to lose games for it. And that's how Magic works sometimes, which is okay because sometimes your opponent's the one who mulligans and you lose. So it goes around and comes around. Decks like this tend to mulligan more because we're looking for very specific things. We can't just have Island Ponder and then fix our draws that way. So we have Thoughtseize next turn. So we're looking to draw into a green source, or a Thespian stage is also fine. That gets us towards the combo. Our opponent didn't play a turn 1 threat, so we've got time. A Verdant Catacombs. So this is a green source. I think we will fire this off now. See what our opponent's working with. A Force of Negation, a Daze. Our opponent's got a lot of tricksy things I'm not a big fan of here. So I think we can take out the Daze, and then in our opponent's turn we can crop rotate if we want to. We don't have to though. We're just going to get the Bayou for now. That way if there's any shenanigans we can respond. We don't believe our opponent has Wastelands in our deck. We've boarded that way, so let's see what our opponent has here. It's going to be a Brainstorm, or have they got an untapped source to deploy their Iconoclast? Okay, interesting they're playing the Ponder rather than one of the cards we know about. So the Force of Negation only works on our turn, so we can crop rotate for... So we can turn this Bojuka Bog, for example, into a Thespian stage if we want to. Maybe we're supposed to do that before our opponent ponders, because then we know all the cards in our opponent's hand. Maybe that's the smarter thing to do there. Okay, they did not shuffle their library with this ponder. They played the Mystic Sanctuary. I don't think we want to crop rotate just yet, because we don't necessarily know what we're looking for. Okay, so we have an Urborg. Let's play out our Urborg, and then we can crop rotate when our opponent casts a spell, or in their end step, depending on when feels best for us. We know most of our opponent's hand. Scalding Tarn. So they played a land that we knew that they... that we didn't know they had, which means we know the rest of the cards in their hand. They tap out here. A third path Iconoclast. Sure, that's a guy. So then they can make some guys here. Float black here. We will crop rotate, sacrificing our Bojuka Bog. Our opponent cannot Force of Negation this because they don't have 3 mana available and it's not our turn. A Brainstorm. Sure. We can pay around a Daze. It's just a Force of Will that we're trying to dodge here. We could have done this last turn response to Ponder, but we didn't know if we were going to be getting something else. Maybe we should have just done it and got the Thespian stage and set ourselves up to just draw any land. That's definitely something I can think about when I come back to this. Okay, so we get our Thespian stage into play. Excellent. And I suppose we should copy our Bayou while we're here, because we've got the mana. It still retains the Thespian stage ability. Just means if for some reason we need green mana, we have it. Okay, so our opponent saw that we drew a Bayou. Let's deploy our Dark Depths. So our opponent has 1 turn to deal with this. So they know the top card of their library now because they brainstormed last turn. So they brainstorm now, they get to see 2 fresh ones. If they don't brainstorm, it means they probably already have an answer, which is a little bit annoying for us. We ideally want our opponent to play Murktide this turn as a chump blocker. So we can make the Dark Depths this turn. Okay. They currently don't have a creature, or at least they're representing they don't have a creature here. They don't have a way of removing our creature because they're not attacking with the third path. If they attack with the third path, that gives the impression they can remove our Dark Depths token. I suspect this is just putting the damage in to try and race us, which is something that happened in the previous time we played this deck. So there's certainly a possibility that they might be able to race us with a few lightning bolts, making some more guys with the odd brainstorm, etc. Because they get to fog for a turn if they play the Murktide Regent. Okay, our opponent took a while, but they eventually cast the Murktide Regent. So this says that our opponent doesn't have an answer right now. Okay, so trying to play a Delver for another way of dodging. So end of turn, we're going to make the 2020. So we'll tap this and we'll tap this. And we keep this one without counters on. Make ourselves a 2020, as I've done so many times before in my life. A Sejiri Steppe. Not a bad draw. We'll give our creature protection from blue. And we'll go to attacks. And swing through and kill them. They knew that that was the card we drew off the top, because they saw the previous one. So we got the match. We're back into a positive win record on 4-3. So 2 rounds to go. We could finish on a 6-3, which is fine. But again, I like playing this deck and I want to test it. And it's more content for you, so why not? Alright, I'll see you in the next round. Alright, we're on the draw for round number 8. We have a weird looking hand here, so we can fire both of these off to go and get our Sylvan Scrying. I think we just need to mulligan. Okay, now this is a pretty nice one. This is a turn to 2020, so I think we can keep this one. I think we probably ship back the Verdant Catacombs. We keep the Elvish Spirit Guide in case we need to play around dazes and things. Flooded Strand from our opponent. Volcanic Island. This is feeling very delvery, which is more or less okay. Not of this world. That will certainly help along further down the line. So we can play this Swamp. We can play this Lotus Petal, so we're prepared. Next turn we can play our Hexmage and our Dark Depths. And then we can deploy our Thespian stage if that doesn't work. Right, so we can just play this one out with our Elvish Spirit Guide for the days if need be. Sure. Right, we'll play out our Thespian stage here. So our opponent pitched a Murktide Regent, which is nice. That's a flyer that provides a big clock, so it's nice to see that in the exile zone rather than in play. Doesn't mean they haven't got another one. So we got instant creature land in their graveyard right now. Okay, they're just doing this to surveil, see if they can turn their guy into a 3-power guy. They put an expressive iteration into their graveyard to turn this into a 3-3. So we get to make this now on our turn, or in our opponent's upkeep, if we so wish. Upkeep is better because it gives our opponent one turn to play a thing. Okay, so they got a Murktide, sure. So we can play out our Dark Depths here. Our opponent's got one card in hand. Understood. Let's go to our opponent's turn. I think we have to make it now to dodge the Wasteland. So we'll do that. We have a Not of This World, but we can't play it around a daze. So they need to have exactly daze and Brazen Borrower. They're putting cards into their graveyards, that's fine for us. They shuffle their library and draw off the Ponder. A Brainstorm. Okay, so this means that they are unlikely. They're going to need a land and a Brazen Borrower. And then we have that covered. So we don't have to worry about the days then, because they need an additional land to get that going. The Murktide Regent is probably going under the bus. Yeah, so no attack from our opponent. Let's see what we draw here and see if it changes how we want to play this game. Okay, I think we'll just play out the Urborg here. And we have 2 Not of This World. I'm pretty confident we can win this game. So this time we kill the Murktide, unless they have a way of jumping the Dragon's Rage Channeler, so that that blocks instead, and they can get 6 across. Okay, so they're going to block with the Dragon's Rage Channeler, then they can attack us for 6 if they can find another blocker potentially. But again, we have 2 Not of This World protecting our Marit Lage right now. I think the way we actually lose this game is probably our opponent reducing our life total to 0 rather than them removing our Marit Lage. If they can deploy another flyer and then attack with their Murktide and get 6 in, that'll be quite a good way of doing it, I would imagine. Sure. So this comes and gets eaten up here. Our opponent might be able to deploy another Murktide, which will grow the first, and might leave us in a bit of trouble. A Ponder. Okay. So another Murktide is one of the worst case scenarios here. Best case scenario is our opponent tries to Brazen Borrower our Marit Lage. I want them to find the answer. Not something that happens every day. Okay, so they have the Murktide Regent here. So this is one of the worst case scenarios that we can face. So this puts their first Murktide into an 11/11. So it's going to come across, and it's going to hit us. And we're maybe going to regret this Boseiju being in our hand, I think, if we draw a Sylvan Scrying now. We did not draw a Sylvan Scrying. So if we attack with both of these guys, so if we attack, they block here, they kill us next turn. If we don't, they attack with both of them and kill us. I don't think it's worth insulting my opponent, so I'm going to Thoughtseize them and just see if we can see a bit more of what their deck's doing. Okay. So they had to draw all 3 Murktide Regents that game. Bit unfortunate, but it is what it is. So we have various options of things that are useful here. Steely Resolves, Abrupt Decays, and these things all have relevant text. We need to keep these because they look like straight blue-red Delver, so they're going to be trying to wasteland us. I think we can probably trim a Ghost Quarter here. The crop rotations are an awkward one. If we want to keep them in, we need to board in more Duresses. So at present, we have this setup, which means we probably have to cut possibly 1 crop rotation here. If we want Abrupt Decays, I don't think we do. I don't think we need Leylines. Leylines does shut down a lot of their flyers, though. So we could try having Leylines and boarding out Not of This World and just being a little bit more resilient in this way. And using our stuff to poke holes in. Board out a couple of these and keep a couple of Not of This World in. Bit annoying to lose that game, but such is life sometimes. This hand doesn't do anything, we need to mulligan. This hand does stuff. We can keep this. We can start the game on a basic as well. Do we need to use our Lotus Petal immediately? It does let us duress our opponent. Probably need the... this is tricky. We kind of need both of these, which means we probably can't keep the Lotus Petal. But then our duress isn't really working either. So maybe it's the duress that goes. We keep spells we can cast. We don't really want to have to tutor for a black source here. So this first one is on Wasteland. Force of Will, Pitching Days, sure. So we'll play this. So we can play into the Wasteland a little bit and then crop rotate away the thing they try to Wasteland. Sure, so there's the Wasteland. We suspect our opponent would have it. Let's play a Pithing Needle. The last one got 2 for 1. Let's see if this one does. Wasteland. We'll play our Boseiju. We don't want to pop the Lotus Petal just yet, because then we can just get hit by a Daze and get 2 for 1. Well, sorry, we can't get hit by Daze because they got a Wasteland, but we can get hit by a Force of Will and we can lose our Petal and our Sylvan Scrying. We really need to resolve our Scrying, and this is our opponent's first threat. So this time we can do this. If we pay for a Daze with the Petal, that's fine. Okay, so let's Sylvan Scrying. Which gets us a Dark Depths. We'll play our Dark Depths. We can hold up a crop rotation, a lightning bolt. This is so they can surveil in their upkeep and hopefully get better draws. We get to make our guy next turn. We just take our little 1 damage. That seems fine. Opponent's got 2 cards in hand. So we draw a Duress. So this turns into a Thespian stage, then we play this. Okay, yeah, so we can Duress our opponent first. Seems good. They're going to brainstorm away. They're going to cast Minor Misstep on it. Interesting. That's from Surveil 1. Let's see where they put this card. Murktide in the bin. Sure. So now we will crop rotate away this Boseiju. Get ourselves a Thespian stage. Play our land for the turn. And so go. So we have a Pithing Needle covering Wasteland. So that's nice. My opponent's got 1 card on top of their library and they bin the previous card. Which, if they had a way of removing our Merit Lage, you would probably want a Murktide just as a good way of winning the game quickly after they get rid of the 2020. Okay, they're cracking a Polluted Delta, so one of the cards they had was a land. So they got 1 card in their hand right now. What is it going to be, opponent? It's got to be a pretty good one. A Murktide Regent. Sure. So not going to attack here. We get 2020, we get to eat the Murktide. Because they don't have any spells to jump the Dragon's Rage Channel this time. In we swing. Under the bus it goes. We'll keep this card in hand to make our opponent think we have something. I don't really think they have a chance to play around it though. Sure, so we got that one. Fine. If I want more crop rotations, what am I going to do to bring those into my deck? Do I trim on the Leyline? Our opponent's on the play this time though, so the Leyline might be more useful. I think I'd rather have a crop rotation. I'll just leave 3 Leylines in. I've got some weird numbers in here. This hand does not do anything. This hand does things. This hand does some things. We will keep this. We have to get rid of one of these cards. Probably the Duress. So we're going to pick apart our opponent's hand. And then we're going to... So we can get a basic swamp because we've got the Spirit Guide for when we need to crop rotate. We don't need to expose ourselves to a Bayou here. Expose ourselves with a Bayou. This just gets a basic swamp. Then we cast the Thoughtseize, because that's the more flexible one, so it can hit a Delver or something that's going to mess with our clock. Sure. I'll let that go. I'll not pay. I could pay for this, but I think we're going to need the green mana later on. And we have a Duress coming next turn anyway. This slows down our opponent's deployment of things. They've got 4 cards in hand now. There's a Volk that we knew about. We take our 1 damage here. There's 2 instants in our opponent's graveyard. So I think we Duress our opponent here. See what they're working with. 2 Brainstorms and a Murktide. Sure. So we probably just play this out on Wasteland. If they daze this, we will pay this time, I believe. Or will we, actually? Because next turn we can crop rotate. So you can float 1, crop rotate this into Dark Depths. So we've got 1 floating. Use the second one for this. So we can kill our opponent with a crop rotation next turn. If our crop rotate resolves, of course. If our opponent goes for a wasteland play, if they counter this, I think if they don't find a wasteland in their brainstorm, they won't counter the Pithing Needle. So maybe I was supposed to be really cheeky there and name Scalding Tarn or something, because they would, if they have a wasteland, they would be more inclined to counter that, but they might have just not found a counter spell. We already know they've got a Leyland floating in the top of their deck though. So we can dodge Force of Negation with our crop rotation next turn. A Misty Rainforest. Okay. I would have made the wrong fetch hand anyway. And then the Murktide. Here's our opponent with 2 cards in hand. Okay. 2 cards in our opponent's hand. Do we let them untap or not is the question. We can do it in their upkeep. Potentially give them options of brainstorming. I think we do this in their upkeep. Right, so we will have a minor misstep. Interesting. Pretty terrible for us, truth be told. Yeah, we got punished for not doing it in our turn then. Okay. So we played around Force of Negation. We got caught by minor misstep. We had already seen minor misstep in this matchup, so maybe we're supposed to play around that one a bit better. So we need to make our creature this turn. How do we do that with what we have available right now? Yavimaya, Cradle of Growth. This is 1 mana, 2 mana. We crop rotate this away. What do we do there? So if we cannot make our guy, unfortunately. We don't have any crop rotation targets that save us a turn here. We don't have any Maze of Ith or things like that. I think we are just dead on board. Yeah, we played around one thing, we got caught by the other. Maybe we should have played around the misstep and cast it in our turn. Yeah, that's on us. We also knew that there was a potential island floating around. We didn't think they had this in their hand. We thought we put it back with the brainstorm. But yeah, pretty unfortunate that one. I think we could have played that game differently and won that game. Delver's usually a pretty good matchup, I would say, because they don't have the most interaction. I'm not expecting lots of missteps. I don't think it's actually very good in Delver personally. I think it's better in decks that are less tempo focused. But yeah, that's a pretty sad one, unfortunately. So we're even record going to the final round now, which is a bit of a sorry state, but that's the way the cookie crumbles. We're on the play for the final round. Our opening hand doesn't do anything. Let's mulligan. This hand requires another piece. I think we can do better. This hand makes a turn 2 2020 with Pithing Needle and Not This Well Protection, potentially. Let me see how many cards we get to keep here. So we want to keep 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 potentially. So we got to get rid of 2. So we're definitely getting rid of... tricky. What do I think we are getting rid of is the question. Is it Thespian stage? And Not of This World and just hope that the 2020 gets there? We can play around Wasteland. We basically get to choose what we play around a little bit here. So we've chosen to play around the Wasteland here. Which might not be good enough, but we'll see. So this is where, if we hadn't have mulliganed twice, and we got that same hand, we would have been able to keep another protection piece as well. So we would like to not see blue cards from our opponent. Unmask targeting us. So we're going to lose our crop rotation, I suspect, because that's the way that we get the Dark Depths taken. They exiled an Archon of Cruelty, which makes me think my opponent is probably some sort of reanimate deck. Whether they're black-red, it's most likely to be black-red because they unmask, but you never know quite what people are playing. We've got the Dark Ritual as well. A Thoughtseize. Okay, so we lose all the cards in our hand. Sure. Not great when we started off on a mulligan to 5 already. We've mulliganed a lot this showcase, unfortunately. Okay. So we have a Bayou. So we can get a Bojuka Bog to try and stop their reanimate, potentially. Otherwise, I think we just sit on this crop rotation until we draw either half of our combo, then we can go and find the other half. If they try and do any Thoughtseize shenanigans, then we have to crack it off. Okay. We will Thoughtseize our opponent. See if we can get rid of any of their bits and pieces going on here. Okay, so you see an Entomb here. For a Grizzlebrand. Alright. Semmer's Emissary. And an Unmask. Interesting. Let me take the Semmer's Emissary. That way, if we need to, we can Bojuka Bog and definitely get rid of the Emissary, which can basically be impossible for us to beat. We know they've got an Unmask in hand, so they're not going to cast it this turn unless they draw a land and they sack their Petal, but then we still Bojuka Bog and get rid of these. Okay, so green, We will crop rotate away our Urborg here. Get ourselves a Bojuka Bog. Exile our opponent's graveyard. Unmask away. So they pitched the Dark Ritual they drew. So they're keeping their fetch land uncracked in order to do that. A Thespian stage. That's one of the pieces we're looking for. So we've got 4 Dark Depths, 2 crop rotations, and 4 Sylvan Scryings in our deck right now. So we will copy our Bayou now, just in case we need another green source for some reason. An Urborg. We can play the Urborg out. It does help our opponent a little bit, but not particularly. We have no real reason to keep cards in hand, so we may as well play it out. It's our opponent's turn. So they got to find a way of putting a creature in the graveyard and a way of reanimating it. So something like a Faithless Looting here could be pretty good at doing that, because it will draw them 2 cards. Okay, here's best case scenario for them probably. Scarlet of Grief. That's a slow clock that we should hopefully be able to beat. A Pithing Needle. I guess we play this out on Griselbrand. Griselbrand isn't the creature we're scared of. The one that actually kills us is the Archon of Cruelty, really. That's the one we don't want to see. So our opponent can flash back their Faithless Looting using their Lotus Petal this turn, which looks like what they're doing. It's unlikely that they make a creature this turn. Then we'll probably get another turn still. Okay, so there's the Griselbrand. Right, so we've got a Hexmage. That's a clock. Not a very good one if they manage to reanimate this Griselbrand, though. But they can't draw cards with their Griselbrand, at least. And if we draw a Dark Depths, or a Crop Rotation, or a Sylvan Scrying, we can make our guy. And the Griselbrand will be forced to block, and they won't be able to get any extra cards off of it. Sure. Animate dead. So they've got a 6/7 lifelink, which is a 3-turn clock. We drew a Dark Depths. Our opponent can attack if they want, but they will die into our Dark Depths. The Griselbrand will have to go under the bus. And we just have to fade in long enough that they don't get a Archon of Cruelty in play. Right, the cracking Verdant Catacombs, they're going to flash back this other Faithless Looting. And Exhume. Okay. Not an Archon of Cruelty. Happy to see that. We're going to use the Vampire Hexmage. Oh, do we use the Vampire Hexmage? I think we actually are supposed to use the Thespian stage so we can play around the Archon of Cruelty killing one of our guys. And also, once this guy's blocked it, then gives us another attacker. So if we attack with this, they gain 7. So this is just going to make... Oh, sorry, they gain 6. And they go to 21. So this keeps our Hexmage alive. A protection against Archon of Cruelty. So they go to 21. So we have lethal in play. We have protection for our guy. We have protection if they have an Archon of Cruelty that will force their Archon of Cruelty to block. So I think we're in an okay spot. Another Faithless Looting. If they do something like Exhume, we get back our other Vampire Hexmage. No Archon of Cruelty in there. Sure. They're just getting back the Griselbrand. This is just buying them turns, really. So they're using Animate Dead as a fog. Right, so we can go attacks. They gain 6 life. They lose their guy. Now they could take 6. They could take 20 here and go to 1. But I think it's probably best that they don't do that. Now we have a Dark Depth, so we can get our 20/20 again if something happens to this one through our Not of This World, which seems unlikely. Flashback Faithless Looting again. They do get another draw step after this because they're on 27. A Marsh Flats. They want any follow-up? Okay, they're packing it in. So we got the game 1 there. We have Leylines of the Void. We have Duresses. This is not a game where we're going to need our Not of This World, so we can get rid of those. Pithing Needle isn't great. It can name Griselbrand, and that's about it. This is one of the matchups where not having the Caracas can come back to bite us a little bit. But I think we'll be okay. So we get rid of 1 Pithing Needle, and I don't think we're going to need a Ghost Quarter for this match. This seems fine to me. Show and Tell is something we have to worry about, but we've got 8 hand disruption effects. Okay, this hand is pretty good. We have the turn 3 20/20 here. We've got Thoughtseize. Now our opponent can definitely just get us on turn 1. Okay, they've gone to 5 cards. If they make the big scary turn 1 play, then this could be a tricky one. But I don't think we're supposed to mulligan to Leyline for this. And then we've got a pretty serviceable hand here. Okay, 4 cards left in our opponent's hand. This gives our opponent the ability to put multiple things. Okay, Dark Ritual. This is probably not great for us. A Thoughtseize, okay. Okay, so they get a Griselbrand into play. Alright. And they get to draw some cards. And we're probably going to lose a bunch of cards from our hand here. So what can happen here is if... Okay, they Thoughtseize them... They Thoughtseize us, sure. If we mulligan to Leyline, they can just do a show and tell. And then we just lose the game that way. So they got fetch down they can't crack right now. Interesting. A Karakas would be pretty useful about now. We don't want to let them crack their thing, so we're going to play this. They got the Pithing Needle. We can't crop rotate for Karakas because we don't have a Karakas. We can Thoughtseize our opponent. We can hold off a crop rotation. I don't think that's going to do the work for us. Although if we get a crop rotation for the Thespian stage, and they can't Thoughtseize away our combo, but then our combo is quite slow. We do have multiple crop rotations though. It's going to be a little bit tricky. Let's Thoughtseize our opponent, I think. Coffin Purge, Exhume, Thoughtseize. I guess we take the Exhume here. So our opponent can draw 7 next turn if they want to, but they won't be able to cast any spells unless they draw a non-fetch land. So what they could do this turn is just gain their 7 life and then Thoughtseize us. Or they could Thoughtseize and reanimate themselves, but that will kill them, so they probably shouldn't do that. Sure. Okay, so they're going for the Thoughtseize line here. We have triple crop rotations, this doesn't really matter to us. Thoughtseize targeting us, yep. Another crop rotation. So we play out our Dark Depths here. No, that's not right. Yeah, we can play our Dark Depths or our Urborg, either works here. Is there a way that we can get multiple mana out this turn? So we can turn this into a Yavimaya, tap this for green, crop rotate again. And Thespian say no, we're 1 mana shy. So we take 7 this turn, and then our opponent probably gets to do a lot of gross stuff with their Grizzlebrand. So I suspect we lose this one. They haven't seen the ley lines from us though, so they might not have to worry about show and tell. They should usually be bringing in show and tell for most matchups, I would imagine. They can draw 7, or they can just rest on their laurels. Okay, they're going to 5. How much of our hand can they pick apart? Grief. Sure, you can grief us. We've got a load of crop rotations. What did they pitch that one? An unmask. Sure. Unmask, exiling this Coffin Purge, targeting us. Sure, so we lose one of our crop rotations. Unmask targeting us. Okay. So now we have to act. We have to go and get Thespian stage. The unmask won't hit. What did they exile for that one? They reanimate, sure. What are they going for here? Even if they reanimate the grief, that's probably good enough, I think, here. Stronghold Gambit. I don't think we beat that. Okay, so straight black-red. Interesting. So, I don't think we have any problems with how we sideboarded there. We also have more information about our opponent's deck now. I think we just go ahead and we should be relatively well off on the draw here. Oh, on the play, sorry. Wowzers. Yeah, this is turn 2 Marit Lage on the play. I think we keep this. We can do an emergency Bojuka Bog on turn 1 if we need to. And the chances are they're going to Thoughtseize us first. But it's possible. If they do Thoughtseize us, we just snap this Bayou into a Dark Depths, untap Urborg, Hexmage, make the guy. Let's see how we do. Opponent is straight black-red Reanimator because they're running Stronghold Gambits rather than Show and Tells. Stronghold Gambit not going to work against all these Hexmages. Unmask, targeting us. Let's crop rotate. Let's get our Dark Depths. You can take a Hexmage. I got a few of them. Opponent's got 4 cards in hand left after this. Let's play a Hexmage. I had to keep the quadruple Hexmage hand, right? Sure, an Entomb. This might well beat us, unfortunately. Sem's Emissary is pretty good against us here. Archon of Cruelty, also pretty bad. Grizzlebrand. That's probably the least scary of all the threats in their deck against us, if I'm honest. Now, it can obviously produce more threats, but it doesn't always do that. Sure, we have 2 Hexmages now. So we're insulated against Archon of Cruelty. We're just trying to dodge the Sem's Emissary, I think. 7 cards, sure. I would very much like to untap without having my Duress interfered with. We got black mana in our opponent's pool into Dark Ritual. Probably not great for us. This Entomb Exhume, because that's pretty bad for us. Thoughtseize, targeting themselves. Chance to remove the Annex. That's fine. A lot of cards in our opponent's hand there. Not the white creature we were scared that they would have. A Dark Ritual. You can hard cast a Grief here. They're evoking this, pitching a Grief. Grief. Sure. So we're going to lose our Duress here, I imagine. No, they're taking one of the Hexmages. Interesting. Interesting choice when they have an Exhume in their hand, to be honest. Exhume. So we can get the Chancellor or the Grief here. We get our Hexmage back. They get the Chancellor. Sure. They're casting another Exhume to get back the Grief. We'll make it 2020. This means we get our other Hexmage back off this Exhume. All the Hexmages in the world. So now we'd probably lose a Duress. Opponent's on 4 life here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We got Sejiri Steppe, not a Sejiri Steppe. Okay, so we can attack, and the Chancellor will probably eat it, and that's probably fine. We can have a look at our hand that we already know what's in there. So this one is each player chooses a card and the creature card revealed this way with the lowest mana value. So that's not an issue. They've got a lot of junk in their hand, so I kind of would like them to have to hard cast their Faithless Looting this turn. Let's do that. I'd rather they pay 3 for this and spend the whole turn casting it. They can't attack with the Grief because I can put 2 First Strike bodies in front of it. Because their hand's got a lot of fluff in it. Attacking with Grizzlebrand is an incredibly bold play here. Some martial arts. Like, they probably have to draw 7 and reanimate the Chancellor here, just so they can block again. I think that's their plan, to just keep putting blockers in the way. We can draw a Sejiri Steppe, that would be nice. Draw 7 cards, sure. We can attack with all of our Hexmages as well. And force some more damage through. So if they just reanimate just the Chancellor, we attack with everything and they die because they put this Chancellor here, this here, and they've got 4 coming through. Unmasked targeting us. Okay, so they're going to be Stronghold Gambiting perhaps. Into. So this is probably going to be a Serra's Emissary, which is what they should have got instead of the Grizzlebrand. There's the Serra's Emissary. How do we beat the Serra's Emissary now? It's a tough one. I don't think we have anything for this. You and creatures you control have protection from creatures. Okay. And how do we go about doing this? Let's check our deck. We have no way of beating this Serra's Emissary. I guess we are done. Pretty sad. Maybe we should have mulliganed to Leyline for the second game. I would say that Reanimator is a very favourable matchup for Depths. But favourable doesn't mean you win every one. So maybe we could have mulliganed harder. We had a pretty reasonable hand with a lot of ways of poking things in our opponents. But maybe we're just supposed to mulligan to Leyline for game 2 and get our opponent that way. But we did see a Stronghold Gambit in the second game it was. So that would have eventually gotten round to getting us anyway. Yeah, a bit sad on that one and a bit sad on the whole showcase, to be honest. But I used up a decent amount of my positive variance last weekend and now I'm on the flip side today. That's the thing about a Magic tournament. You can play well and not do well. Variance will determine some amount of how your tournament goes, whether that's the matchup you face or the hands you kept. We mulligan pretty hard this time around, which is sad, but sometimes happens. But hopefully we had a lot of interesting play for you. All right, so that was our pretty poor one overall. I think it was 4-5 or something was our final record, so pretty bad. We lost a lot of game 3s that were pretty close. Like we got nutsed hands by the Madness. If we'd have been on the draw, on the play in game 1, we beat the Madness hand, but we didn't, and then we lost to game 3 against them. We had an opponent that drew their 3rd Iconoclast after we killed one and Thoughtseized the other. We had a player who drew their 3rd Murktide, which is on the one turn they had to draw it to survive and then kill us. So it was a little bit of on the wrong side of errors. I think we made a couple of little errors here and there, though, and possibly we should have mulliganed harder against the Reanimator deck. But yeah, I really like the deck still. I think the games we lost, I don't think having a Karakas in our deck makes any difference to those games. So I think having the 2 Boseijus makes sense to me. We did play against the Initiative once, which is interesting. I'm curious to see how well it's done across the whole showcase, and we'll find out soon. But yeah, I do still like this deck. This wasn't the best showcase of it. I've got plenty of videos on my channel of this deck doing better than this, like 4-1s and stuff. But and obviously I top forward last week at a paper tournament. But sometimes you're not going to get there, especially with a deck like this where you're trying to assemble specific A plus B. And sometimes you're just going to be able to keep 7s, and sometimes you're going to have to mulligan to 5 or 4 a lot, which is what we did. We did win on 4 once or twice, I think, this league. This showcase. But we didn't really get there enough times, and we did mulligan a little harder than I would have liked, but that's the way the cookie crumbles sometimes. And we had a choice of keeping various different types of protection in our hand, but because we mulliganed, we could only keep one of them, and sometimes we would choose the wrong one, and that's, again, a problem with a deck like this sometimes. We're not like a ponder deck. We can't fix our draws. We have to mulligan astutely, and sometimes we're going to have to mulligan more than other times, and it's not going to come together for us. Sideboard-wise, I think everything was fine. I'm tempted to trim a Force of Vigor for a Gaia's Blessing, to be honest. I think that might be quite good against the painted decks, although we're normally reasonably good against the painted decks. But it's relatively free, and I think the Abrupt Decay are covering what Force of Vigor is doing just as well for the most part. We've also got the 2 Boseijus now, so that gives us 4, 5, 6, 7... plus 4 tutors. That's technically 11 ways of blowing up artifacts and enchantments in our deck post-board. So maybe we can trim one of these. So maybe this is the slot that we're looking to mess around with going forward. So I'll probably have a little think and see what we want to change for that one. But I hope you enjoyed this one. I don't know what position we finished yet because the thing's still going. I suspect we finished outside of the top 64, as we should do with a poor record like the one we had. All right. Thank you for watching. I know it wasn't the most impressive outing, but again, sometimes Magic's going to be like that. And we did have some really fun games along the way, and we showcased what this deck can do. We saw some interesting decks on the other side of the battlefield they don't see very often. So hopefully this will be good content, and it's worth me giving up my whole Sunday afternoon and evening for. All right, if you're still here, like, comment, subscribe. These things cost you nothing, and they really help me out, so please do them. I'm getting close to that 1,000 subscribers mark, so try and help me get there. All right, thank you very much for watching, and goodbye.